Chapter 1646. Tomorrow, they would go to the venue of the Great Demon Battle Arts Exhibition. After making such a decision, Makarov dismissed everyone and began to prepare. Because in addition to Team A and Team B, the rest of the members would also go to the venue to cheer for everyone. Therefore, this event could be said to be an event of the entire guild. Of course, originally, there should be more or less a few people left to look after the guild, but except for the main members who came back from Celestial Wolf Island, the rest of the members objected loudly. That was natural. Last time, after a group of main members left, they did not return to the guild and disappeared for a whole 7 years. This time, no matter what, the members who had guarded the guild for 7 years were not willing to stay in the guild and watched everyone leave. Once bitten, twice shy. Obviously, there was still some uneasiness in the hearts of those companions, and they were somewhat sensitive to the departure of the main members. In view of this, Makarov simply announced that from tomorrow until the end of the Great Demon Battle Arts Exhibition, the guild would suspend business and would not accept any commissions. As for the members of the guild, they would all go to the venue of the Great Demon Battle Arts Exhibition to cheer for the contestants. Anyway, even if they continued to operate, with the current situation of the guild, there would not be many commissions. Since that was the case, they might as well stop business and wait until they won the Great Demon Battle Arts Exhibition, and gained both fame and fortune. At that time, it would not be too late to open for business. In this way, the group of members left the guild in the evening. Night gradually fell. On a dim path, Wendy was walking here alone. This was a very rare thing, because if it was a normal day, Xiaolulu would definitely be by Wendy's side. Just like Naz and hubby were inseparable partners, Wendy and Xiaolulu were also inseparable best friends. However, today, Wendy sneaked out alone after Xiaolulu fell asleep. Following the dim path, Wendy came to the riverbank. Phew! Standing on the edge of the riverbank, Wendy took a deep breath of the cold air and smiled. Sure enough, the night air is delicious. As a dragon slayer sorcerer, Wendy could recover her mana and stamina by eating substances of the same attribute. For Wendy, who had learned the dragon slayer magic of the sky, air was the best nutrition package. What Wendy liked most was the morning and night air. The morning air was very fresh. For Wendy, that kind of air was equivalent to fresh milk. The night air was a little cool. To Wendy, that kind of air was like a frozen cold drink. No matter which one it was the smell that Wendy liked. However, Wendy rarely ran out in the middle of the night like this to taste the night air. The main reason was that Wendy was timid to begin with, and Xiaolulu was overprotective of her. Running around alone in the middle of the night was something that she rarely did in the past. But today was special. As she breathed in the cold air, Wendy pressed her chest and muttered softly, "I'm still a little uneasy." That was why Wendy ran out alone. Tomorrow, Fairy Tail would go to the venue of the Great Magic Battle Exhibition and compete with various famous guilds from all over the kingdom for the title of number 1. As a member of one of the 2 teams sent out by Fairy Tail, Wendy's heart was still somewhat uneasy. Me, can I do it? It was no wonder that Wendy was so unconfident. Just as Noah thought, not long ago, Wendy was just a novice sorcerer who could use some support magic. It was difficult for her to use many combat magic. Compared to the other members of the guild, she could be said to be the weakest. Although her mana has increased a lot now, compared to me, Brother Elfman, Sister Kana, and the people from Thor Castle, she is definitely more suitable to go on stage. Whether it was Fried, Bikesrow, Ibarglin, or Elfman and Kana from Thor Castle, they were all former first-line members of Fairy Tail. In Fairy Tail, the only people who could definitely surpass these people were those S-rank sorcerers. Apart from the S-rank sorcerers, even the former Naz and Grey found it difficult to say that they could definitely defeat these people. Therefore, compared to Wendy, these people were undoubtedly more suitable to go on stage. Of course, it was said that only those S-rank sorcerers could definitely surpass these people, but Noah was an exception. After all, even if Brother Noah is not an S-rank sorcerer, he is still very powerful. The more Wendy thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. Is it really okay for me to go on stage with such a Brother Noah in the competition? As soon as her voice fell, a somewhat helpless voice sounded behind Wendy. "I was wondering what you were doing here alone." So you were thinking about such things? When the familiar voice sounded, Wendy was suddenly startled. However, before she could turn her head, a warm big hand was placed on Wendy's small head and gently stroked it. Really, undoubtedly, you were so confident during the day, but now you're hiding here alone and saying such things. It's really worrying. The familiar voice, the familiar smell, and the familiar way of stroking made Wendy's uneasy heart start to calm down little by little. Brother Noah. Wendy didn't need to turn her head to know who it was. Why are you here? Well, this question. Noah was also standing by the riverbank, stroking Wendy's head while looking around and saying such a sentence. Do you want to hear the truth? Or do you want to hear lies? Truth, lies. Wendy was startled and looked suspiciously at Noah. Brother Noah also knows how to lie? No, it should be said that if I say that I don't know how to lie, then I'll be suspected, right? Noah laughed and said, everyone knows how to lie. It's something that can be understood without learning. Almost all humans know how to lie, and I am no exception. It's just that there's no need to, but if there's a need, I'll also lie. But I know. Wendy tilted her head and revealed a cute smile. Brother Noah has never lied to me. Oh, you. Noah patted Wendy's head lovingly and said, actually, I was a little worried about your situation, so I wanted to check on you. In the end, I found out that you weren't in the dormitory but ran out. After joining Fairy Tale, Wendy moved into the female dormitory. Therefore, Noah only needed to ask a few of the guild's girls to check on the situation of Wendy's room, and he would immediately know that Wendy was not in the dormitory. After that, Noah began to look for Wendy's whereabouts and found her here. Now, it seems that my worries were not unfounded, Noah said as he looked at Wendy. Hey Wendy, tell me honestly, are you forcing yourself? Noah was most worried that Wendy was forcing herself. This girl's nature was extremely kind and pure. As long as it was for the guild, even if it was beyond her ability, this petite girl would still stand up and help the guild, right? Noah was worried that Wendy would not disappoint everyone's expectations and hopes. In order to let the guild become the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom again, she would disregard her own wishes and force herself to stand up. If you're really forcing yourself, then Wendy, I won't allow you to participate in the competition. Noah said very seriously. I hope that you can be honest with me. Brother Noah, I'm really not forcing myself, Wendy said hurriedly. Then she hesitated for a moment and said uneasily, I'm just worried that I don't have the ability to fulfill everyone's wishes and not disappoint everyone's expectations. Is that so? Noah's expression softened and he could not help but laugh. Indeed, it's very similar to your worries. Don't make fun of me, Brother Noah, Wendy protested in a small voice, her face pained. I'm really worried that I won't be able to do it, Noah muttered to himself. Chapter 1647. Noah finally understood the uneasiness in Wendy's heart. To put it simply, Wendy was not confident in her own strength. The Great Magic Battle Exhibition was a battle between the major guilds in the entire Fiori Kingdom. All kinds of magic shooters would appear. Among them, there were definitely some who were stronger than Alusha, Mira, and even Laxus. For example, Della of the Lamia scale had risen to 5th place in the 10 Great Saint Magi in 7 years. Her ranking was even higher than Makarov's. In the face of such an opponent, apart from Noah, even Naz, that thick-skinned guy, wouldn't dare to say that he could win, right? Since that was the case, Wendy, who could only use some support magic not long ago, was even more so. Moreover, in the guild, there were people who were stronger than Wendy. It was no wonder that this little girl felt uneasy about participating in the competition. At that moment, Noah turned around and knelt in front of Wendy. He continued to stroke Wendy's head and said, Then let me evaluate Wendy's current strength. Wendy's body immediately tensed up. She looked at Noah and nodded with an uneasy expression on her face. Noah acted as if he did not see the uneasiness on Wendy's young and cute face, and began to evaluate her. In terms of magic power alone, you've improved a lot compared to before. It's enough to catch up with Naz and Gray when they participated in the S-rank magic shooter promotion exam. With such magic power, I believe that you can use many of the Sky Element Dragon Slayer magic that you've learned, right? Wendy nodded heavily and confirmed Noah's guess. In fact, with Wendy's current magic, she could even use the Dragon Slayer magic. From this, it could be seen how much Wendy's magic had grown. Of course, if it's just high magic power, it doesn't mean anything. However, the Dragon Slayer magic that you've learned is a lost magic that originated from ancient times. It's extremely powerful. In addition, it also has healing and enhancement effects. It's obvious that it can't be weak, Noah said confidently. Then, the only thing that you're not qualified for now is that you haven't experienced enough actual combat. Combining all the factors, in my opinion, your strength is probably weaker than Naz and Gray when they were in the S-rank magic shooter promotion exam. Noah looked directly at Wendy. With such strength, in the previous guild, it was enough to stand on the first line. But that was the previous guild, wasn't it? Wendy couldn't help but say. Now 7 years have passed, everyone in the guild has improved a lot. They are much stronger than me now. But Wendy, it's wrong to only judge the role of strength, Noah retorted. Let's not talk about the individual battle for the time being. But in the team battle, with a supportive member like you who has healing and support magic, how much effect can be exerted? You know best, don't you? What if it's not a team battle, but an individual battle? Wendy seemed to be a little stubborn. If it's an individual battle, then won't I be holding everyone back? Why do you have the idea that you will hold everyone back in an individual battle? Noah laughed. Indeed, in today's guild, there are many magic shooters who are stronger than you, but in other guilds it may not be so. You have always compared yourself to your companions in the guild, and compared yourself to those powerful people in famous guilds, but in other guilds, there are members who are weaker than you. Noah looked at Wendy with a gentle gaze. You have to believe in your magic, Wendy. Believe in my magic? Wendy was stunned. Looking at Wendy like this, Noah reached out and held one of Wendy's small hands. No matter what kind of magic it is, you have to believe in it. Noah looked into Wendy's eyes and said this. After all, that's the magic that Grandine taught you. The magic that your mother taught you. Believe in it. That's what you should do. Noah's words were like a ray of sunlight shining into Wendy's heart, dispelling all the uneasiness and darkness in Wendy's heart. Seeing Wendy's expression suddenly become cheerful, Noah couldn't help but smile. It seems that you have finally seen the light. Thank you, Big Brother Noah. Wendy reached out her other hand and held Noah's hand that was tightly holding hers. Her eyes curved into a crescent moon shape. Big Brother Noah is really an amazing person. You just said some self-righteous words to yourself. Noah rubbed Wendy's small head. There's nothing amazing about it. Wendy didn't say anything else and just enjoyed Noah's head rubbing. After a while, she suddenly stuttered. That Big Brother Noah, do you really intend to marry Sister Mira and Sister Lisanna? That's right, Noah said strangely. What's wrong? No. Nothing. Wendy was still stammering. Then she suddenly became depressed. But if that's the case, what should I do? Noah looked like a monk scratching his head in confusion. What do you mean by what should you do? Wendy was speechless. But after a while, Wendy took a deep breath and looked at Noah seriously. Big Brother Noah, do you remember when I asked you if you would have a third fiancé? Noah was speechless. Of course, Noah remembered this. It happened when he was reunited with Wendy. At that time, Wendy asked Noah if there was a possibility of a third fiancé since he had 2 fiancés. He still remembered that Noah's answer at that time was no. Could it be that because of this, Wendy felt that he didn't deserve Mira and Lisanna? Just as Noah couldn't help but think of this, Wendy's young and cute face turned red for no reason. In the next second, Wendy shouted as if she had thrown caution to the wind. Big Brother Noah. Noah, who was letting his imagination run wild, was startled by the sudden shout. He couldn't help but take a few steps back and raise his voice nervously. What's wrong? Wendy's face was red and her eyes were tightly shut. She shouted as if she didn't shock him to death. I also want to be Big Brother Noah's fiancé. Wendy's shout directly turned into an echo that reverberated over the entire river bank. It also reverberated in Noah's ears, causing Noah to be stunned. The whole place fell into a dead silence. After an unknown amount of time, Noah let out a cry that sounded like he had gone off the line. So that's why. Wendy's head began to smoke. She resisted the dizziness and shouted in despair. I also want to be Big Brother Noah's fiancé and marry Big Brother Noah. Noah's brain short-circuited. What's going on? How did this happen all of a sudden? Could it be that there was a mistake somewhere? At this moment, Noah suddenly had a feeling that the world was playing a joke on him. Looking at Noah's stiff expression, the red on Wendy's face began to fade and tears began to accumulate in her eyes. Can't I? Looking at Wendy, who was about to cry, Noah's heart was filled with an extremely strong sense of guilt. Driven by the sense of guilt, Noah almost subconsciously opened his mouth. But you're still young. At least wait until you grow up. After saying that, Noah came to his senses. He even had the urge to die. On the contrary, Wendy's pair of eyes bloomed with unprecedented vigor, and her beautiful face became red again. Then it's settled, Wendy said extremely shyly. When I grow up, Big Brother Noah must marry me as his fiancé. You can't lie to me. Leaving this sentence, Wendy finally couldn't help but be shy. She turned her head and directly ran out of sight. Noah could only stare blankly at the direction Wendy ran in, and didn't react for a long time. Chapter 1648. In the end, after parting with Wendy, Noah returned to the guild without any memory of it and returned to his room. Lying on the bed, Noah recalled Wendy's blushing face and could not help but laugh bitterly. Just kidding. Looks like it's not like that. Or rather, in Noah's memory, Wendy was not a child who would make such a joke. It's just pure longing. It's not like that either. When a child told an adult that he must marry her as his bride when he grew up, anyone would think that it was just a child's talk. Unfortunately, Wendy was no longer a child of that age. Compared to Noah, Wendy was younger, but not by much. After all, Noah was only about to turn 20, while Wendy was about to turn 15. A 5-year gap was not big, but it was not small either. A girl who was about to turn 15 would not be so innocent as to casually say that she wanted to be someone's bride. From Wendy's shy expression, it could be seen that this girl knew what she meant. In other words, I was confessed to by a child who is almost 5 years younger than me? At this point, Noah's expression was extremely strange, and there was even a hint that he could not bear to look at it. The worst thing is that I said those words. At that time, Noah still remembered that this was how he responded to Wendy's confession. At least wait until you grow up. Thinking of this, Noah could not help but want to cover his face. I feel so ashamed that I want to die. As soon as he finished speaking, Noah felt an extremely intense gaze on him, causing his body to stiffen. He slowly turned his head and looked at the side of the bed. He saw that at the side of the bed, there were 2 petite girls with silvery white hair that was as soft as the moonlight. One of them stared at Noah without moving her gaze away, while the other had a smile that was not a smile, looking very happy. The one who stared at Noah was the girl with long hair that reached her waist. Moreover, the other party's gaze was somewhat sharp, causing Noah to feel a slight prickling pain on his skin. Under the girl's intense gaze, Noah's face was unnatural. Why did you come out? Silence. No one answered Noah's question. It was precisely because of this that Noah felt even more uncomfortable. After a while, Athena showed a carefree smile. Since ancient times, it has always been the privilege of pure young girls to offer their longing and love to heroes. From this point of view, my fated one, you have the potential to become a hero. In one sentence, Noah completely understood. The 2 elf girls clearly saw what had just happened. The corners of Noah's mouth twitched. Under such circumstances, Aster continued to stare fixedly at Noah. His face did not reveal the slightest trace of emotion, but this caused Noah to feel a sense of dread. Noah could only reply cautiously. Master? Aster ignored Noah and continued to stare silently at Noah, giving Noah a lot of pressure. All right, Sacred Sword Fairy, Athena said in a bored tone. No matter what, that person is still your master. Your attitude is a little too disrespectful. I don't need you to remind me, Divine Sword Fairy, Aster finally spoke, but although his voice was unusually sweet, there was a hint of boldness. I am Master's sword. Everything will go according to Master's wishes. At this point, Aster stared at Noah again. Undoubtedly, I also have the right to become Master's possession. When he said this, Aster's voice began to carry some emotion. Thus Noah understood. Aster, you're at odds. Obviously, the matter of Wendy wanting to become Noah's bride had caused this jealous elf girl to explode. Undoubtedly, when Mira and Lisanna were together, they did not display such feelings. Why was it different when it came to Wendy? Also, when it came to existences like Lestia and Pest, Aster would also display an unusual competitive mentality. On the other hand, Aster did not care about characters like Luohao at all. What kind of logic was this? Could it be that Ace had a habit of only looking at girls who were about the same age as him? Noah was speechless and could only ask, "What's the matter with possession? Didn't that dragon girl say that she wanted to become Master's bride?" Aster said as if it was a matter of fact. "According to my memory in human customs, that means that a woman wants to become a man's possession. Is that wrong?" "No, although there are some parts that are not wrong, there are some that are ridiculously wrong," Noah ridiculed. "Furthermore, Aster, didn't you become my possession long ago?" Aster immediately went silent. After a while, Aster expressionlessly spoke. "I forgot." Noah's body lost all strength and he collapsed on the bed, unable to get up again. On the other hand, Aster seemed to have only just recalled this matter, and his expression suddenly became cheerful. "Right, I'm already Master's possession. Therefore, even if that dragon girl wants to become Master's possession, she can only be beneath me." Noah really wanted to tell Aster that the two of them were not the same. However, when he saw Aster's mysterious eyes surging with excitement, Noah decided to keep his mouth shut and let Aster's imagination run wild. Athena pouted at Noah's reaction. "You've really been working hard." Lying on the bed, Noah couldn't help but sigh. Who could he blame for this? Athena had been looking at Noah's direction. Her cold and bewitching snake-like eyes flickered. "Seems like you've sorted out your emotions." Noah raised an eyebrow at the words that came out of nowhere. Then he understood what was going on. "I see, so this is the reason why you two didn't come out all this time?" Ever since they came out from the world between and entered this world, Aster and Athena hadn't transformed into human form for 2 whole months. If Noah didn't take the initiative to talk to them, they wouldn't even talk to Noah. At first, Noah felt that it was a little strange, but now it seemed like it was Aster and Athena's thoughtfulness. Even if it's you, suddenly taking on the responsibility of saving thousands of worlds and knowing your unusual origin, you would feel confused too, right? Athena said nonchalantly, "I just felt that you should have some time to sort out your emotions, so I'm observing from the side." "I was just hindered by this divine sword elf." Aster looked straight at Noah. "I wanted to come out earlier to accompany Master." The rational and emotional words of the two elves warmed Noah's heart, and he couldn't help but smile. "I'm sorry for making you two worry." "Yes." Aster nodded and said resolutely, "I'm Master's sword, so please take care of yourself, Master. No matter what, you're still the Master we serve," Athena said as she gazed out the window at the beautiful night sky. "Let's not talk about the divine sword elf. Other than being your contracted elf, I'm also your power. If something happens to you, I won't be able to live either, right?" "It's the same for me," Aster refuted Athena, then lowered his head and said softly, "Only Master can use me. If Master is no longer around, then I." Seeing Aster's expression turning sorrowful, Noah reached out his hand and stroked Aster's head. "Don't worry, I'll be fine." Aster nodded, and the sadness on his face faded away. Noah looked at Aster, who was obediently standing in front of him, and then at Athena, who was looking at the night sky outside the window. He silently made up his mind. Even if it was just for the two elves who couldn't bear to lose him, he had to overcome the difficulties and win in the end. Even if his opponent was an extraordinary existence, it would still be the same. Chapter 1649. Crocus. It was the most prosperous city in the Fiori Kingdom. Unlike Magnolia, this city was widely known as the City of Flowers, because there were all kinds of beautiful and delicate flowers blooming all year round. It could be said to be a beautiful city famous for flowers. Entering the city, the first thing people saw was often the flowers blooming in every corner of every street. On the streets surrounded by all kinds of flowers, the phenomenon of people coming and going was very common. Amidst the sea of people on the streets, some of them even exuded a mysterious aura that was hard to detect. That was magic. In this bustling city of flowers, archmages could be seen everywhere. There were two reasons for such a grand occasion. 1. This city called Crocus was the capital of the Fiori Kingdom. In other words, this was the location of the palace of the Fiori Kingdom, and it was also the city where the king and the nobles lived. Of course, as the center of the Fiori Kingdom, there was no reason for Crocus not to be bustling, and this was also part of the reason why archmages gathered here. 2. The annual Great Demonic Battle Tournament that determined the ranking of the various guilds in the Fiori Kingdom was held in this city. This was the real reason why archmages could be seen everywhere on the streets. There was only one day before the Great Demonic Battle Tournament officially began. Tomorrow would be the day when the Great Demonic Battle Tournament officially began. Therefore, archmages from various guilds in the kingdom began to gather in this city, including Fairy Tale. Finally, Naz, whose face was ashen, fell directly in the middle of the street. There was no other reason. It was just because he was carsick. Ugh! Gadjaloo, who was carrying a luggage, also fell down, his face as ugly as Naz's. Looking at Naz and Gadjaloo, who fell neatly on the street, Lucy was puzzled. It's fine if it's Naz, but why is Gadjaloo also carsick? This was also the question of the others. Therefore, everyone's attention was focused on Julian. As a member of the same guild as Gadjaloo and a member of Fairy Tale, no one knew Gadjaloo better than Julian. Zhu doesn't know either. Noticing that his companions were looking at him, Zhu quickly waved his hand and shook his head. There was no such problem in the past. Really? Elisha frowned slightly. Then what is going on? For the time being, someone has helped Brother Naz and Brother Gadjaloo to cast a spell that can heal their sense of balance, Wendy said weakly. However, there's a limit to the duration of magic. Furthermore, if I keep using it, the duration will become shorter and shorter. There's nothing I can do about it. Could it be a common problem among all Dragon Slayer archmages? Gray mentioned in a seemingly bored manner. Aren't those two dragon-slaying archmages? Speaking of which, Fried looked at Laxus. Laxus seems to get carsick too, right? The group of companions suddenly turned their surprised eyes to Laxus. Fried. Laxus glared at Fried. Don't say anything unnecessary. In other words, Fried's words were just unnecessary and not false. It can't be, right? Gray himself was surprised. Is it really a common problem among all Dragon Slayer archmages? But Wendy doesn't seem to. Mira tilted her head. Isn't Wendy also a Dragon Slayer archmage? What? Do you suspect that Wendy is not a Dragon Slayer archmage? Xiaolulu immediately bared her teeth and defended her. Don't look down on others. Xiaolulu, no one said that. Habai quickly tried to please her. Maybe Wendy secretly helped herself to use magic to heal her sense of balance. No, I didn't do that. Wendy shook her head. Similarly, I don't have any symptoms of motion sickness. All of a sudden, everyone fell into a dilemma again. Looking at the group of companions who were in a dilemma because of Naz and Gadjaloo's problems, Noah couldn't help but feel at a loss whether to laugh or cry. He didn't expect that Naz, Gadjaloo, and even Laxus all had the common problem of motion sickness. This was an unexpected weakness. Is it really a common problem among Dragon Slayer archmages? But Wendy seems to be fine? Thinking of this, Noah glanced in Wendy's direction. Coincidentally, Wendy also secretly looked at Noah and suddenly met Noah's gaze. Suddenly, Wendy's pretty face turned red and she lowered her head shyly. Obviously, what happened last night was also a big challenge for the pure, kind, and timid Wendy. I wonder when Wendy will be able to return to her usual appearance. Otherwise, wouldn't it be difficult for Noah to even talk to Wendy? At this time, Makarov came from the other end of the street with the rest of the members. Okay, the registration is over. Makarov looked around at everyone. Now we just have to wait for the Great Demon Wars to officially start. Is it over just like that? Noah stepped forward and asked. Nothing else needs to be done? Right, the officials didn't make any announcements, they just told us to pay attention to one thing. Makarov raised a finger. Before 12 o'clock in the morning, the contestants who need to participate in the Great Demon Wars must stay in the designated hotel. Designated hotel. Alusha also stepped forward. In other words, the residences of the contestants and guild members will be separated? That's right. Makarov took out 2 small pieces of paper and handed them to Noah and Alusha. These are the designated hotels for your A and B teams. Before 12 o'clock in the morning, you must all stay there, understood? Noah and Alusha both nodded, took the small pieces of paper with the addresses, and returned to the team. Then you guys are free to arrange the rest of the time. Makarov's expression relaxed, and he said in a casual manner, as long as you reach the designated location before 12 o'clock in the morning, that's fine. The members of the guild immediately beamed with joy. Among the people present, there were less than 10 who had been to Crocus before. Naturally, it wasn't that they weren't interested in the famous City of Flowers. Thus, everyone gathered in groups of 2s and 3s, and dispersed to various corners of the city to have fun. I'll go take a look at the hotel first. Alusha looked at Noah and smiled. Good luck, Noah. You too. Noah returned a smile. Don't get into trouble. Don't worry. Alusha nodded, turned around, and left swiftly. I'll go take a look at the hotel with Lisanna, Mira said to Noah. Noah, go play by yourself. Okay. Noah replied helplessly, making Mira and Lisanna burst into laughter. Then they left together. In the blink of an eye, everyone left and scattered. Even Naz and Gajalu, who had collapsed on the street, were dragged away. In the end, only 2 people and 1 cat remained at the scene. One was Noah. The other was Wendy. The remaining cat was naturally Xiaolulu. The atmosphere suddenly became a little awkward. Wendy stole a glance at Noah, her pretty face blushing slightly. She lowered her head, and shyly looked at her fingers. Noah scratched his cheek and laughed dryly. Looking at Noah and Wendy, Xiaolulu furrowed her brows and said coldly, What are you doing? Did the 2 of you do something behind my back? This sentence made Noah and Wendy feel guilty. Seeing this, Xiaolulu's eyes became extremely sinister. Feeling that he would be interrogated if this continued, Noah quickly changed the topic and said to Wendy, Wendy, how about we go for a walk too? And Wendy nodded repeatedly. The 2 of them immediately gathered together and hurried forward. Wait. Xiaolulu was shocked and chased after them in exasperation. Don't think about leaving me behind. Thus Noah, Wendy, and Xiaolulu went far away together. No one noticed. On the roof of a building far away from the street, a small black shadow had been looking down, opening its mouth and laughing. Chapter 1650. Hey, what exactly did you guys do behind my back? Hurry up and tell me. That male over there. Don't tell me you really did something to Wendy. Wendy, tell me honestly, what exactly happened between the 2 of you? Did you guys hear what I said? On one of the streets in Coloches, Xiaolulu, who had a pair of white wings on her back, asked frantically while flying. Noah and Wendy, who were walking in front, couldn't help but cover their ears in annoyance. However, Xiaolulu acted as if she didn't notice anything. She just kept asking questions. Finally, Wendy couldn't take it anymore. Xiaolulu, Wendy said in a pleasant tone. I told you, there's really nothing going on. Do you think you can hide it from me? Xiaolulu didn't buy it at all. If nothing happened, why would the atmosphere between the 2 of you be so weird? I say, just because the atmosphere is weird, does it mean that you guys did something wrong? Noah couldn't help but interrupt. Maybe I saw Wendy accidentally when she was changing her clothes? Wendy cried out in surprise, her pretty face turning red. What did you say? Xiaolulu's eyes widened. Then, she pounced on Noah's face crazily. I'll scratch you to death, you evil male. After saying that, Xiaolulu's pair of hands really stretched out a few sharp claws. Without saying anything, she scratched at Noah's face. Presumably being scratched by those claws, even if his skin and flesh didn't split open. there would at least be a few ugly red marks on his face? Noah was taken aback. He reflexively reached out his hand and slapped him. Slap. With a crisp sound, Xia Lulu let out a mournful cry as she was sent flying. Seeing that Xia Lulu was about to fly out, Wendy was shocked. She raised her hand and caught Xia Lulu with much difficulty. She hugged Xia Lulu and heaved a sigh of relief. Ugh. Xia Lulu's eyes began to turn, but she was still extremely unwilling to admit defeat. Wendy, did you see that? This violent male is not worthy of your love. No, there's no such thing, Wendy retorted without any hesitation. Big brother Noah is very gentle. He is not violent at all. You only know how to speak up for that male. Xia Lulu glared at Noah. This guy already has 2 fiancés, and he's about to get married, yet he still came to provoke you. Not only is he violent, he's also a playboy. You can't say that about Big Brother Noah, Xia Lulu, Wendy said angrily. Although Big Brother Noah is indeed a bit of a playboy, if he wasn't, wouldn't I have no chance? The corner of Noah's eyes twitched. He was speechless. Wendy seemed to have just realized what she had said. She blushed and became flustered. I didn't mean that. I'm just glad that Big Brother Noah is a playboy. No, I'm not glad that Big Brother Noah is a playboy. Even if Big Brother Noah is a playboy, I don't mind at all. No, it's not like that either. Noah only felt that his chest was pierced by a few arrows, causing his heart to ache. He hurriedly stopped Wendy from continuing. All right, you don't have to say any more. I understand what you mean. Is that so? Wendy heaved a huge sigh of relief and patted her chest. That's good. Idiot, Xia Lulu said in exasperation. If you continue like this, you'll be eaten up by that guy sooner or later. No, there's no such thing, Wendy retorted weakly. Just like this, Wendy hugged Xia Lulu, and the two directly entered the stage of quarreling. Noah, who felt that he had been forgotten, could only touch his nose resentfully, but he didn't dare to say anything more. After all, Noah was originally in a disadvantageous position on this topic, and there were 2 brides who were about to be married. No matter how he explained, it would be useless, right? Noah simply lowered his presence and let Wendy and Xia Lulu quarrel. He laughed and shook his head as he followed behind the person and the cat, and continued to walk. It was also at this moment that Noah suddenly felt something. He felt a strong sense of malice. Noah's eyes suddenly froze, and his footsteps became sluggish. He turned his head abruptly and looked to the side. There was a small alley there. Even in the day, the alley was very dark. However, Noah clearly saw a small black shadow darting into the alley and disappearing without a trace. Wendy, who was quarreling with Xia Lulu, felt Noah's abnormality. She turned her head and looked at Noah strangely. Brother Noah? What's wrong? Nothing. Noah stared at the dark alley, not looking at Wendy, and said directly to Wendy. Sorry, Wendy, I'll leave first. If you don't have anything else to do, remember to go back to the hotel directly. Also, don't wander around where there's no one, okay? Wendy, who didn't know what happened, was confused, but she still realized something from Noah's expression, and nodded obediently. I know, Brother Noah. I'll go back to the hotel directly. Good girl. Noah patted Wendy's head. Then he suddenly started running and rushed into a dark alley at the side. Seeing Noah disappear into the alley, Wendy lowered her head and said to Xia Lulu in her arms. Then Xia Lulu, let's go back directly. You really listened to that male. Xia Lulu muttered with some dissatisfaction, but didn't object. Although she was unhappy that Wendy kept circling around Noah, but Xia Lulu's intention was for Wendy's good. And just now Noah obviously noticed something. If Wendy continued to stay here, there was no benefit. So even if Xia Lulu was unhappy, she wouldn't object. So, Wendy and Xia Lulu walked towards the hotel. On the other side, Noah was moving at an extraordinary speed in the dark alley. Although the ability points were left in between worlds, to upgrade, allowing Noah's physical ability to return to the state when he didn't have any ability points, Noah had trained in the deep mountains for a few years. During those years, Noah mainly trained in magic, and didn't train his physical ability much. But even so, he was still much stronger than the average person. If the strengthening of the protozoan virus hadn't been absorbed by the authority, I should be even stronger now. Noah stared ahead. But anyway, there's magic to strengthen it, so there's no difference. Just as Noah was about to use magic to strengthen his legs and rush forward to see if he could catch up to something, another presence suddenly approached him. Before Noah could turn around, the air trembled. Immediately, pieces of human-shaped paper suddenly descended from the air and lined up neatly. Like flowing water, they streaked across the air and rushed in the direction of Noah. In the blink of an eye, the neatly arranged pieces of human-shaped paper flew around Noah, and like chains, they wrapped around Noah and tied him up. Clank! Then, the pieces of human-shaped paper that were tightly attached to Noah's body bloomed with a purple light. They were blooming from the strange characters drawn on the pieces of paper. Noah suddenly felt an invisible binding force pass through the pieces of human-shaped paper and onto his body. At that moment, Noah narrowed his eyes and didn't resist. He raised his head and looked at the shadow in front of him. "Come out, you sneaky bastard." The voice spread clearly in the dark alley. Then a sinister laugh sounded. As expected of the next president of Fairy Tale, you can still be so calm in this situation. No wonder that old guy Makarov took you in as his adopted grandson. Accompanied by such a sinister laugh, a man slowly walked out from the shadow in front of him. A man in his 30s or 40s, with a black crew cut and an extremely thick black beard. Chapter 1651. Noah frowned as he watched the cold man slowly walk out from the dark corner. For some reason, Noah felt like he had seen this man somewhere before. Noah opened his mouth coldly. "Who are you?" "Oh, you don't know me? Didn't Makarov and Laxus mention me to you?" The cold man pretended to shrug his shoulders. "How cold? No matter what, we can still be considered as a family." Family. Noah's frown deepened as a mocking expression appeared on his face. "Sorry, I don't remember having such a shady family member. My family members are all open and above-board people. They don't have people like you who do sneaky things." The cold man's expression suddenly froze as he looked at Noah with a gloomy gaze. As expected of the successor of that old man Makarov, even that superior attitude is exactly the same. It's really unpleasant. If it wasn't for the fact that I still want to know some important things from you, I really want to torture you a little. Cut the crap. Noah questioned. "Who are you?" "Then, let me introduce myself." The cold man spread his hands and smiled sinisterly. "My name is Ivan Dole. You should understand now, right? Dole." Noah was stunned at first, then his pupils shrank. Noah finally knew why he felt like he had seen this man somewhere before. When he was young, he was just adopted by Makarov. Before he lived in the guild, Noah had seen this man's photo in Makarov and Laxus's house. It was a family photo. Of course, the people in the photo were a family. There were a total of 3 people in that family. One was Makarov, who had just entered his old age. The other was Laxus when he was young. The last person was also a man. Makarov's biological son. Laxus's biological father. He used to be a member of Fairy Tale, but he did something that harmed the guild. In the end, he was mercilessly kicked out of the guild by Makarov. That man's name was Ivan. Ivan Dorothea. "I see." Noah looked at Ivan closely. "You are Grandpa's disappointing son?" "Don't say that, little Noah." Ivan smiled sinisterly. "No matter what, I am still your father." Before Ivan could finish his sentence, he was immediately interrupted by Noah. "Don't say anything else." Noah looked at Ivan with a sharp glint in his eyes, and said with a spurious smile, "After all, if I really have a father like you, I'm afraid I won't be able to resist." It could be said that Noah didn't have any good impression of Ivan. It wasn't just because Ivan had done something to endanger the entire fairy tale, but also because of what he had done after being expelled from the guild. After being kicked out of the guild, it was said that Ivan didn't join any other guild, but created his own guild. That guild was called Raventail. It was a dark guild. Originally, the dark guilds that were active in the underground were basically under the Baram Alliance. However, Raventail was independent of the Baram Alliance, hiding alone in the border and secretly developing. Makarov specifically investigated this guild. As a result, although Raventail didn't do anything to kill or set fire, it did do a lot of sneaky things. Just like what Noah said, it was a guild that gathered all kinds of rascals. And Ivan was the leader of these rascals. One could imagine how Noah felt about such a person. If Ivan really shamelessly treated him as his father, then Noah really didn't know what he would do. Perhaps he saw something from Noah's eyes. Ivan couldn't help but take a few steps back. Then he realized that he had a trace of fear towards Noah, and became angry out of humiliation. Let's see how long you can maintain your stubbornness. After saying that, Ivan formed a hand seal. Beep beep beep. Suddenly, on the human-shaped paper that tightly bound Noah and stuck to Noah's body, the mysterious characters that were blooming with purple light actually exploded into balls of electric light, causing electric current to suddenly appear and violently run through Noah's body. Following the violent flow of electric current, Noah actually felt a sharp pain, which surprised him. "You think I don't know that you have the power to nullify magic?" Ivan said proudly. "When you annihilated the 6 demon generals, oration cease. The information about this power of yours had already reached my ears. Otherwise, why would I come to you knowing that magic would be nullified? Not only that, I also know that magic will only be nullified if it's directed at you." Ivan laughed loudly. "So the paper wrapped around you is just an ordinary piece of paper. The words engraved on the paper are magic, and the electric current is ordinary electric current stored by magic. It's not generated by magic. That's why it can harm you, right?" In other words, Ivan didn't use magic against Noah from beginning to end. The paper wrapped around Noah's body was just a normal paper, and the characters engraved on it were magic that strengthened the paper's hardness and toughness. The electric current that directly hit Noah's body was also not generated by magic, but normal electric current stored by magic, and now it was just released. This way, the paper could wrap around Noah, and the electric current could also harm Noah. Feeling the pain coming from all over his body, Noah clenched his fist, ignoring the electric current that was violently running through his body, and his sharp eyes looked straight at Ivan. "What's your purpose?" Hearing this, Ivan maintained the hand seal in his hand, and looked at Noah with a cold smile. "I only have one purpose, and that is lumen starlight." Noah's pair of eyes suddenly tightened. Seeing Noah's expression clearly, Ivan was ecstatic. "You really do know about the existence of lumen starlight. I knew that Makarov would definitely tell you about it. After all, he already announced that you will be the next president." Ivan, with a face full of ecstasy, couldn't help but take a few steps closer to Noah's direction, and raised his voice. "Tell me, where is lumen starlight?" Noah ignored Ivan's excitement, and only stared at Ivan, and said in a deep voice, "Why do you know about the existence of that thing? Grandfather couldn't possibly have told you about it, right? Lumen starlight. That was something that absolutely could not be known by the world. Makarov had always said so. The only people who could know about the existence of lumen starlight were the past presidents of Fairy Tale. Therefore, the people who knew about the existence of lumen starlight, including Noah, should only be 4 people. The first president, Mavis. The second president, Prekto. The third president, Makarov. And the future 5th president, Noah. Apart from the above 4 people, even Makarov, the 4th president, didn't know about this matter, and Laxas, who was Makarov's grandson, also didn't know about it. That being the case, how did Ivan know about the existence of lumen starlight? "That kind of thing, it doesn't matter," Ivan said agitatedly. "Hurry up and tell me where lumen starlight is." Seeing that Ivan's emotions were starting to lose control, Noah narrowed his eyes, and his voice became emotionless. "It seems that there is no way to get more information." Ivan suddenly froze. At this time, Noah's whole body shook. Pung. The paper wrapped around Noah's body and the electricity in the explosion all suddenly exploded. Chapter 1652. Bang! Amidst the loud explosion, the paper wrapped around Noah's body and the electric current on Noah's body exploded, creating a strong gust of wind that blew towards the surroundings. Dong! Ivan didn't even have time to react. His entire body was viciously slammed into by the sudden shockwave. With a heavy muffled thud, he flew backwards and slammed heavily into a wall. The double impact from the front and the back directly caused Ivan to spit out all the air in his chest. The vision in front of him was distorted, and he was extremely dizzy. Then Ivan heard this sentence. "What's wrong? Is this all you're left with after being defeated by your little tricks?" Ivan raised his head with difficulty and looked ahead. There, Noah was pulling off a piece of paper in the shape of a human that was draped over his shoulder. He looked at Ivan with an extremely calm gaze. However, it was that incomparably calm gaze that caused Ivan's entire face to stiffen. It was only then that Ivan realized. On Noah's body, streaks of electric wiring were fading away bit by bit. Indeed, if you don't use magic directly against me, your little tricks can still be of some use against me. Noah patted the dust off his body and glanced at Ivan. But at best it can only be of some use. When will you be able to produce magic that can be of use against me? Ivan's expression changed drastically. At this moment, Ivan recalled a very important matter. That was, even if the power of magic immunity was excluded, the man in front of him was still one of the top magic shooters in Fairy Tale, and even stood at the peak. According to the information that Ivan knew, the man in front of him had many achievements. He killed Joseph, who was once one of the top 10 Saint Magic shooters, and was on the same level as Makarov. He defeated Jalal, who was also one of the top 10 Saint Magic shooters, and sneaked into the Old Council in the form of a consciousness. With the power of one person, he annihilated the entire 6 demon generals, Oration Cease. Even Laxus had lost to Noah more than once. Alusha and Mira both claimed that they were no match for him. Kildas claimed that he no longer had the confidence to defeat him. Even Hades, who was closest to the abyss of the demonic path, and had comprehended the true meaning of darkness, had been killed by Noah. Not only did the man in front of him have the power to nullify magic, he was also a monster. The fact that magic was effective against him was only because they had the qualifications to make him attack. It was not a reason that they could guarantee victory. You don't even understand such a simple thing. And you dare to make a vow in front of me? Noah looked down at Ivan, who was paralyzed on the ground, and mocked. How did Grandpa give birth to such a stupid guy like you? You? Ivan's face twisted. Since you took the initiative to come to me, don't blame me for being rude, Noah said indifferently. Where did you get the information about Lumen Starlight? I will ask you myself. Saying such a sentence, Noah's eyes became a little dangerous. No matter what method I use. Wait. Ivan hurriedly raised his hand and shouted loudly. I am Makarov's son, Laxus's father. You can't treat me like this. Is that so? Noah looked at Ivan with a somewhat pitiful gaze. If that's the case, let me tie you up in front of Grandpa and Laxus. Let's see how they will treat you after seeing your ugly appearance. Ivan's eyes widened. When he realized that Noah was not joking, he became furious. You want to tie me up in front of Makarov and Laxus? Don't even think about it. After saying this, Ivan raised 2 fingers, put them together and formed a hand seal. His whole body fluctuated with magical power. Bang! Almost at the same time, Noah abruptly stomped on the ground. With a heavy stomp, he dashed in front of Ivan. Wah! Ivan was shocked. But at this time, it was too late to react. He saw that Noah suddenly turned around and kicked Ivan's chest heavily. Bang! Accompanied by a muffled sound, Ivan was violently kicked out. Friction with the air, he flew directly out of the alley and onto the street. He forcefully smashed into a stall, smashing it into pieces. On the busy street, the crowd of pedestrians was shocked. What happened? Fight? Is someone fighting? Don't tell me it's those Magic Guide Guild. Where's the law enforcement team? Hurry up and call the law enforcement team. The pedestrians on the street were in a mess, and they all moved away from the broken stalls by a certain distance, leaving an empty space and entering the spectator mode. Then Noah slowly walked out of the alley and entered everyone's sight. Suddenly, the crowd started to discuss. Which guild sorcerer is that? Look, he has a guild's coat of arms. Which guild's coat of arms is that? Seems like I've seen it somewhere. Seems like a small guild that's not very famous. Ignoring the noise around him, Noah directly went in front of the smashed stall. He reached out and dragged Ivan, who was buried in it. At this time, the commotion around them intensified. A team of soldiers wearing standard armor and holding weapons neatly separated the crowd and barged in. The leader was a man who was more muscular than the rest of the soldiers. The armor on his body was also more exquisite. "I'm the leader of the Sakura Knights of the Fiori Kingdom's army stationed in Kurokas, Alcardios." The leader of the Sakura Knights, who called himself Alcardios, stared at Noah with his sharp eyes. "Now is the time when the great demonic combat exhibition is about to begin. I've been appointed as the law enforcement team to be responsible for maintaining order on the streets and not let the Magic Guide Guild's dispute endanger the residents of Kurokas. So, can you tell me why you're having a dispute?" "The kingdom's army." Noah turned his head and looked at Alcardios. Ivan, who was tightly grabbed by Noah by the collar, hurriedly shouted in the direction of the kingdom's army, as if he had seen a savior. "I'm the leader of the Raven Tail. The sorcerer of the fairy tale ambushed me in order to eliminate a strong opponent in the great demonic combat exhibition." That one sentence caused a commotion among the crowd. Is this for real? How dare he do that? That fairy tale that's always been at the bottom. Is this guild finally starting to resort to unscrupulous means to fight for a place? Not only the surrounding crowd, but even Noah was slightly taken aback by Ivan's words. Soon after, his gaze turned icy cold as he looked at Ivan. "So that's how it is. Are you planning to pour dirty water on me and on Fairy Tale?" In that instant, a heart-palpitating aura began to rise from Noah's body. Feeling that heart-palpitating aura, Ivan was scared out of his wits. That was because that heart-palpitating aura was mixed with some murderous intent. In other words, Noah wanted to kill Ivan. Save me." Ivan struggled as he shouted in the direction of the kingdom's army. "He wants to kill me. He wants to kill me." Instantly, the kingdom's army raised the weapons in their hands and pointed them in the direction of Noah. "Let go of the person in your hands." Alcardios took a step forward and spoke loudly to Noah. "If you don't accept the warning, I will arrest you for obstructing public order." "Arrest me?" Noah looked at Alcardios and smiled suddenly, but there was no smile in his eyes. "You can come and try." As soon as he finished speaking, a surge of magic rose from Noah's body without any warning, turning into a hurricane and blowing in all directions. Chapter 1653. Amidst the vibrations in the air, a surge of magic power erupted from Noah's body, turning into a raging gale that swept across the surroundings. The crowd could only feel an extremely terrifying pressure rising from Noah's body. Then, one by one, they revealed a horrified expression. The crowd of onlookers stood rooted to the ground with a stiff expression. The soldiers of the royal army gripped their weapons tightly, their hands trembling slightly. Alcardios's pupils contracted bit by bit. As for Ivan, his face was already covered in cold sweat. Under such circumstances, the magic power rising from Noah's body became more and more violent, causing an invisible energy current to sweep across the air. It was as if it had turned into a tangible pressure, violently suppressing the hearts of everyone present. At this moment, no one could open their mouths to speak. It was not that they did not want to speak, but it was as if their entire bodies were tightly bound, and they could not even open their mouths. Thus, on the entire street, a deathly stillness filled the air, making the atmosphere extremely strange. No one knew how long this scene lasted. At a certain moment, the massive magic power that swept across the air like a hurricane suddenly shrank back, retracting bit by bit into Noah's body until it completely disappeared. Then Noah, who was holding tightly onto Ivan's collar, spoke calmly. "It's just a joke, don't take it seriously." After saying that, Noah released Ivan, causing Ivan to stumble and fall to the ground. He stared blankly at Noah, unable to react in time, and did not move for a long time. On the other hand, the surrounding crowd seemed to have relaxed as they heaved a huge sigh of relief and panted softly. It was only then that the crowd realized. It turned out that just now, everyone present had subconsciously held their breaths. Captain Alcardios, right? Noah acted as if nothing had happened, and asked as if he was talking to himself. Just now this little person said that Fairy Tale wanted to exclude Raven Tail, who was a strong opponent in the Great Devil Battle exhibition. That is to say, Raventail also participated in the Great Devil Battle exhibition, right? I'm not sure. The registration is not over yet. Alcardios was silent for a moment, and then replied in a deep voice. So the list of participants should not have been submitted to the organizers yet. That's not important. Noah looked at Alcardios. What's important is that Raventail is undoubtedly a dark guild, but can participate in the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition. What's going on? Noah's words caused the crowd of onlookers around them. Dark guild? Is that Raventail a dark guild? Seems like I've heard of it. It can't? Dark guilds can participate in the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition? Under the discussion of the crowd, Alcardios coughed and replied. Indeed, Raventail used to be a dark guild, but recently it was recognized by the council and became a regular guild. Therefore, there is no problem for them to participate in the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition. The crowd of onlookers suddenly understood. However, Noah sneered. But when Raventail was still a dark guild, they once caused damage to Fairytale. Don't we have the right to take it back from this dark guild? Hearing that, the crowd of onlookers was even more relieved. So it's like that. In other words, Fairytale is only fighting against a dark guild that has a grudge with them? That's to be expected, right? But hasn't Raventail already become a regular guild? We don't know about this kind of thing, and Fairytale also doesn't know about it. So, even if they take action, it wouldn't be strange, right? The crowd's discussion started to go in a direction that was beneficial to Fairytale. That was natural. After all, even if Fairytale was at the bottom of the list, it was still a proper guild. Even if it had many problems, it had never done anything that would harm the public. On the other hand, even though Raventail kept a low profile, it was still a dark guild. Therefore, it was already clear which side the crowd would stand on. Undoubtedly, it was a matter of no avail. Ivan cursed in his heart, and then shouted at the people around him. Oh no! Everyone, don't listen to this guy. We have never done anything to Fairytale. Is that so? Noah glanced at Ivan. Those in the know that you, Ivan Doria, were once a member of Fairytale, but because you did something that harmed our guild, you were expelled from the guild by our guild leader. Do you want to deny this matter? Ivan was speechless. Seeing Ivan like this, the surrounding crowd started to discuss in low voices. Seems like it's true. In the end, he is still a member of a dark guild. Sure enough, his actions are not clean. All of a sudden, Ivan became the target of public criticism. He was being pointed at by the surrounding residents of Crocus, and his expression was as ugly as it could get. Guild leader Alcardios, I don't think I need to explain the reason why we had a conflict, right? Noah shrugged. What Fairytale wants to eliminate a strong opponent in the Great Demon Combat Arts exhibition competition. It's just this villain who is spreading rumors and causing trouble. You are lying. Ivan's face turned red. Everyone, don't be fooled by him. I am the victim. He really wanted to kill me just now. You are right, I really want to kill you. Noah's mouth slowly curved into a cold arc. I have no mercy for you who has designs on our guild. If there is a chance, I will definitely kill you. The resolute words made Ivan's body tremble, and finally he shrank back. At this moment, there was only one emotion in Ivan's heart, and that was regret. He regretted that when he knew that Noah was the next guild leader of Fairytale, he couldn't help but immediately find trouble with him. However, how could this be blamed on Ivan? The allure of Lumen Starlight was simply too great for the average person. Possessing the Lumen Starlight was equivalent to possessing everything. Using magic that would never be exhausted, whether it was providing magic as a source of energy, selling it, creating great wealth, or developing magic weapons that required a large amount of magic, invading and occupying the continent's territory, and creating great power, it was all within reach. Ivan was not a saint, but a guy whose desire was higher than ordinary people. Knowing that there was such a thing in Fairytale, how could he not have designs on it? It could only be said that greed clouded Ivan's mind, so Ivan didn't notice how difficult it was to deal with Noah. Now, the situation has become very unfavorable for Ivan. Understanding this, Ivan gritted his teeth, turned around, directly pushed through the crowd, and left dejectedly. Ivan didn't notice this. Behind him, Noah was staring at his back, his eyes flashing. And Noah also didn't notice this. Behind him, Alcadios was also staring at his back, and there was a thoughtful look in his eyes. In the surrounding crowd, there was another person watching this scene. Looking at Noah standing in the middle of the crowd, a girl holding a katana tightened her grip on the weapon in her hand and whispered softly, "Is he Noah Dole?" asked Joshua. Chapter 1654. What? In the designated hotel of Fairy Tale B, Makarov stood up from his seat and roared in anger. Ivan, that guy, actually did such a thing? Not only Makarov but even Laxis, who was sitting on the sofa next to him, had a gloomy look on his face as he smacked his lips. That bastard of a dad. Looking at Makarov and Laxis, one with a furious face and the other with a gloomy face, Noah just crossed his arms and didn't say anything. After all, Ivan was Makarov's son and Laxis's father. Regarding Ivan's actions, these two people were the most affected. The rest of the people didn't have the right to interrupt, including Noah. Because of this, among the people present, other than Noah, Mira and Julian also didn't say anything. Only Gadjalu didn't know how to read the atmosphere at all, and directly asked Noah, "But why would the guild leader of Raventail look for trouble with you? Don't tell me it's just to find fault with Fairy Tale?" Hearing this, everyone present cast their eyes on Noah. It was no wonder that everyone had this question. After returning to the hotel, although Noah told them that Ivan was looking for trouble with him, he didn't tell them the reason why Ivan was looking for trouble with him. Because it already involved the matter of Lumen Starlight, so it couldn't be said casually. Therefore, Noah just looked at Makarov and sighed. Ivan is because of the thing in the basement. With one sentence, Makarov's face completely changed. The thing in the basement? The rest of the people were confused and could only look at each other. That guy. Makarov's face was uncertain. How did he know about the existence of that thing? I don't know. Noah shook his head. I can only think of one possibility, that is, someone else told him. That can't be. Makarov subconsciously wanted to refute, but then he thought of something. His face sank and he clenched his fist. Precto? Noah nodded and let Makarov close his eyes. That's right. How did Ivan know about the existence of Lumen Starlight? It could only be Precto, that is Hades, told him. The only people who knew about the existence of Lumen Starlight were Noah, Mavis, Hades and Makarov. Since that was the case, among the four people, who was the most likely to reveal information about Lumen Starlight, there was no need to guess. No matter what, Hades had already fallen into darkness, and was the same as Ivan, the leader of a dark guild. Therefore, it was not impossible for Ivan to obtain information about Lumen Starlight from Hades. Also, according to what I know, Ivan's Raventail has already become a formal guild, and is also participating in the Great Demon Battle exhibition this year. Noah said to Makarov, "If he really has designs on that thing, then I feel that we need to be on guard against what Raventail will do during the Great Demon Battle exhibition." I understand. Makarov took a deep breath and nodded solemnly. I will warn Alush's side and tell them to be careful not to fall into Raventail's trap. Then, how should we deal with Ivan? Noah went straight to the point. Since he knows about the existence of that thing, if we don't think of a way to deal with him, I think he will definitely continue to pester us. It doesn't matter if he pesters us. Makarov lowered his voice. His voice was filled with anger. But if he plans to pester our family, then I definitely can't sit back and do nothing. Noah naturally agreed. If Ivan only looked for trouble with Noah, then Noah could easily get rid of him. But if Ivan had designs on the entire fairy tale, then Noah would definitely not leave him alone. So, grandfather, I only want to ask a question. Noah looked straight at Makarov. If it is really necessary, can I make a move? Makarov immediately went silent. But in the next second, Makarov spoke without any hesitation. If that Ivan guy really causes harm to the rest of our guild members, then you don't have to spare him on my account. His words without hesitation made everyone fall into silence. Noah just turned his gaze and looked at Laxis. Don't look at me like that. Laxus crossed his arms, his expression didn't even change. You are the guild leader. Since that bastard dad is targeting our guild, how to deal with him is up to you. Noah first looked at Makarov, then looked at Laxus. After seeing that there was no change in their expressions, he nodded. I understand. If necessary, I will personally deal with Ivan. Makarov and Laxus didn't say anything else. Seeing this, although Mira, Julian, and Gadjaloo were still somewhat confused, at least they knew that this matter had been discussed. The only thing they didn't understand was one thing. That, Julian said with some unease. The thing in the basement, what is it? I'm sorry. Makarov didn't even open his eyes as he said so. This is the guild's highest secret. Only the guild leader knows. I hope you won't ask anymore. Everyone looked at each other, and could only nod their heads. Then, I'll go to Alusha's place. Makarov stood up and looked at the time. It's not long before 12 o'clock. Don't leave the hotel, understand? Understood. Everyone responded. Makarov's expression became slightly better. He turned around and walked out of the hotel. Only Noah, Mira, Julian, Laxus, and Gadjaloo were left. The five of them fell into silence. After a while, Mira took a step forward and spoke with a sweet smile that was extremely healing. All right, everyone, let's not think about other things. Now, let's think about how to win in the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition. Yes. Yes. Julian hurriedly agreed. Besides Raventail, we still have a lot of enemies. Enemies? Gadjaloo grinned. I love enemies the most. It's useless to think so much now. Laxus glanced at Noah. It's more practical to think about the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition first. I know what you want to say. Noah couldn't help but laugh. Don't worry, I won't lose my composure. Just like what Julian said, we already have a lot of enemies. The Raventail is just a rat hiding in the dark. Before it comes out, we'll just wait and see what happens. Just as Noah's voice fell, a strange phenomenon occurred. Ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong. A bell-like sound suddenly reverberated in the entire space, turning into an echo that resounded through the entire sky of Crocus. What's wrong? Mira asked in surprise. What's going on? Everyone look. Julian pointed at the clock in the room. It's already 12 o'clock. Only then did everyone realize that it was already 12 o'clock. Humph. Laxus stood up. So there's a reason why we have to stay in the hotel until 12 o'clock? Hey, Gadjaloo shouted at everyone. There seems to be something outside. Noah's gaze immediately looked out of the window. In the next second, everyone saw it. In the sky above Coloccus, an extremely large projection abruptly appeared. Yohi, greetings, sorcerers from all over the Fiori Kingdom. Before they could see the full appearance of the huge projection, a humorous voice sounded in the entire space. Now, let the preliminaries of the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition begin. Chapter 1655. Qualifiers. The loud voice from the sky stunned Noah, Mira, Julian, Laxus, and Gadjaloo. Qualifiers? There were qualifiers for the Great Demon fights? Why hadn't they heard of it before? It wasn't just Noah's group. At this moment, all the contestants in the various hotels in Coloccus had the same question. This was because in the previous Great Demon fights, there had been no qualifiers. It had always been an official competition. Teams from various guilds from all over the Fiori Kingdom would compete directly in the venue of the Great Demon fights. Teams would be eliminated according to the outcome of the competition. The guild that remained would be the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom. The previous Great Demon fights had always been like this. There was no such thing as a qualifier. This naturally caused the contestants from the various guilds to be puzzled. Amidst such doubts, Noah went to the balcony and raised his head to look at the sky. There was a huge three-dimensional image there. It was the image of a short person wearing a gorgeous clown costume, with a huge pumpkin head on his head. This person was probably the referee of the Great Demon fights. Under Noah's gaze, the pumpkin image used a humorous tone and exaggerated actions to explain to everyone in Coloccus. I know everyone must have a lot of doubts, but this can't be helped. There are too many teams participating in the Great Demon fights this year. There are a total of 113 teams. If so many teams were to be squeezed together and compete, it would be difficult to arrange. Therefore, the conference has decided to hold a qualifier this year to eliminate the excess teams. In the end, only 8 teams will be left for the competition. 8 teams? Lax's lips curled up slightly. In other words, teams that can't even pass the qualifiers can't even participate in the official competition, let alone obtain a ranking. It seems like it will be very intense, Julian said uneasily. I really hope we won't have to face so many guilds at once in the qualifiers. Gadjaloo raised his fingers and a terrifying smile appeared on his face. Isn't it quite interesting? But wouldn't 113 teams be too many? Mira tilted her head and asked doubtfully. Are there so many guilds in the Fiori Kingdom? Probably because many guilds are like us and have noticed that the rules don't prohibit multiple teams from participating. Noah narrowed his eyes. So, many of the 113 teams are probably from the same guild. Everyone was enlightened. At this moment, the huge pumpkin image in the sky began to move again. Then, let's introduce the contents of the preliminaries to everyone. The pumpkin projection giggled. The rules are actually very simple. All the contestants will have to participate in the competition race. After saying that, the pumpkin projection pointed in a certain direction. The great demons S's. But the pumpkin image didn't give anyone time to react and raised its short hands high. If it's just a normal competition speed, it would be too simple and boring. So we've prepared a super, great stage for everyone. As soon as the pumpkin projection finished speaking, the ground of the entire city of Coloches began to tremble slightly. Noah and the others who were in the hotel immediately started to sway. This was because the entire hotel was shaking as if it had encountered an earthquake. It was shaking nonstop. Then the entire hotel suddenly rose from the ground. It wasn't because the hotel was flying, but because the ground beneath the hotel suddenly rose up and was lifted into the air by the mechanical stone pillars. It wasn't just the hotel that Noah and the others were in. There were quite a few hotels in Coloches. There were more than 100 hotels that were lifted into the air by the mechanical stone pillars. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 hotels rose to a height of more than 100 meters and became very conspicuous. When the hotels stopped, the tremors began to stop. Noah, who was carrying Mira, finally had the strength to look at the sky. Then his eyes suddenly focused. What is that? Mira, Julian, Lax's, and Gadjaloo were all stunned. In the air, behind the gigantic pumpkin image, a gigantic sphere with a diameter of more than 1,000 meters had appeared out of nowhere. The sphere was made up of mechanical steel devices and intersecting corridors that were completely irregular. At first glance, it looked like a city in the shape of a sphere. At the same time, from the gigantic steel sphere, a flight of stairs that was suspended in the air began to extend, all the way to the front of the hotels that had risen into the air. That scene could be said to be extremely dreamy. Without the power of magic, who knew how long it would take for human technology to reach such a level? However, it was precisely because of magic that everything became extremely simple. Everyone, do you see that? That is the stage for the preliminaries that we have prepared for everyone. The gigantic pumpkin image cheerfully explained. The teams of the various guilds must pass through there to find the path to the giant egg, Flapbird, and head to the competition venue. Through this method, the first 8 teams to arrive will be determined to participate in the official competition of the Great Demonic Martial Arts Exhibition. Just like what everyone can see, that is a maze in the air. There is completely no pattern to follow. The pumpkin image explained very passionately. During the competition, each contestant can use magic as they wish, and can also use any method as they wish. Even killing your opponent is not a problem. Of course, the prerequisite is that you bear the responsibility yourselves. We, the Assembly, do not bear any responsibility. We only have 2 requirements for everyone. The pumpkin image extended 2 fingers. First, each team must have 5 people. If one person is missing, even if you reach the finish line, you will be eliminated. Second, you cannot fall out of the maze in the air. Once you fall out of the maze in the air, you will also be eliminated. As long as you comply with the above 2 requirements, please do as you wish. The pumpkin image spread out its hands and declared loudly. Then, I announce that the preliminaries of the Great Demon Battle Exhibition competition has officially begun. After saying that, the pumpkin projection slowly dissipated into the air and completely disappeared. All of Kolochas fell silent. Oh! In the next second, loud cheers rang out from the city. Those were the cheers of the citizens who were looking forward to the Great Demon Battle demonstration, as well as the shouts of the various large guilds as they rushed up the floating staircase. However, Noah's group didn't move at all. They just looked at each other. As a result, other than Gadjalu, the other 4 all smiled. Looks like this qualifier is in our favor. Noah looked at his other 4 companions. Apart from Gadjalu, all of you should be able to fly, right? Myra's Satan's soul had wings. If Julian turned into water, he would be able to get rid of his human body and fly to a certain extent. Rax's was even able to transform into lightning and fly at lightning-like speeds. Only Gadjalu couldn't fly at all. Gadjalu. Noah took off the wing-shaped necklace around his neck and tossed it to Gadjalu. This is for you. What about you? Gadjalu took the necklace and looked at Noah. Can you fly by yourself? Noah suddenly smiled. The energy in his body began to be released bit by bit. The invisible energy turned into an equally invisible force that allowed Noah's body to float bit by bit. This was a technique that Noah had unintentionally learned in the past 2 months of cultivation. By constantly releasing energy to counteract gravity and pressure, and then turning the energy into thrust, Noah could achieve autonomous flight. All right. Noah looked at the maze in the air. Let's go. Everyone nodded without any objections. Chapter 1656. Giant Eggflave. It was the most famous arena in the entire Fiori Kingdom. It was located at the border of Crocus, on top of a tall mountain. If one were to look down from above, it would be an ancient Roman arena located on top of a tall mountain. The arena was surrounded by circular and ladder-shaped spectator seats. In the middle of the arena was a vast open space. A few magnificent statues stood around the arena, looking very solemn and ancient. Such an arena was the venue for the annual Great Magic Showdown that would determine the ranking of all the major Magus guilds in the Kingdom of Fiori. There was no better arena than this in the entire Fiori Kingdom. In addition to the annual Great Magic Battle, it was said that not only the major guilds and famous magic shooters, but even the king and members of the parliament would watch this ceremony. In terms of format, it was extremely huge. If one were to appear here, then even the least famous person would be known by the world. Of course, whether it was good or bad fame, it would be spread out. However, it had to be said that as the venue for the annual Great Magic Battle in the entire Fiori Kingdom, there was no better place than here. In such a venue, at a certain moment, a magic circle suddenly rotated in the middle of the open space and bloomed with light. In the light, a door slowly appeared and was pushed open by a hand. Soon after, a few people walked out of the door. They were Noah, Mira, Julian, Laxus, and Gadjalu. Is this the giant egg-flave bird? Mira murmured. The venue for the Great Demon Battle exhibition is here? Why is there no one here? Gadjalu looked around and saw that there was no one in the arena and grinned. Does this mean that we've gotten first place in the qualifiers? Well, that's not impossible. Laxus looked around and said matter-of-factly. After all, it only took us 5 minutes from departure to arrival. 5 minutes. This was the time it took for Fairy Tale B to pass the preliminaries. This speed was simply indescribably fast. However, who told the members of Fairy Tale B to use the flying method to move around? In the intricate maze in the air, Noah and his group did not waste their energy walking through the corridors. Instead, they directly identified the direction and flew towards the venue. Along the way, the maze in the sky changed shape a few times, completely changing the path inside and even the directions of up, down, left, and right. It even threw the contestants inside into the air, and directly eliminated them. However, it didn't affect Noah and the others who were flying in the right direction. Hence, Noah and his group flew to the end of the maze and found a door. After pushing open the door, they arrived at their destination. The entire process only took 5 minutes. Could it be that he still couldn't get first place in the preliminaries? In fact, no one was too confident in their thoughts. Congratulations, congratulations, congratulations to everyone from Fairy Tale for passing the preliminaries. Accompanied by such a humorous voice, a short judge with a pumpkin on his head appeared in front of everyone with wonderful dance steps. According to the contestant list, you all seem to be from the Fairy Tale B team, right? Congratulations on getting first place in the preliminaries. Hearing the pumpkin's words, the 5 of them, including Noah, smiled slightly. And at that moment, the magical array rotating on the ground once again bloomed with light, and a door appeared once again. Noah and his group immediately turned their heads and looked in the direction of the door. From the door, 4 men and 1 woman slowly walked out. The 4 men and 1 woman who walked out of the door directly met the eyes of Noah and his group. Immediately after, they were stunned on the spot. You. The leader of the group, a man with short blonde hair, had a serious expression on his face. You are Fairy Tale? Noah and his group also looked at the other party and saw a guild emblem on his body. That's... Julian covered his mouth slightly and softly exclaimed. That's the coat of arms of the saber-tooth. With one sentence, the entire atmosphere of the scene suddenly became heavy. Hey hey hey. Audiobook said with an extremely unfriendly expression. Why would a trashy guild at the bottom appear in a place like this? Because they passed the preliminaries, everyone. Pumpkin didn't seem to notice the heavy atmosphere of the scene and giggled. Also, congratulations to the members of Sabertooth for passing the preliminaries. You're in 2nd place. Wah. What? Sting said in surprise. We are 2nd place? 2nd place? Roger couldn't help but frown. We are actually 2nd place? What a strange experience. We're only in 2nd place. Lucius pressed down on the hat on his head. At least in my memory, such a thing has never happened before. Tisk. Audiobook's expression became a little ugly. In other words, we lost to a trashy guild that has been at the bottom for thousands of years? Suddenly, the atmosphere in the air became dangerous. In an instant, the 4 magic shooters from Sabertooth all released extremely obvious hostility towards Noah and his group. Facing this hostility, not to mention Noah, Mira and Julian, Laxus's eyes became fierce. Gadjaloo took a step forward with a vicious look on his face. What? Do you want to fight? Looking at Gadjaloo who came forward, Roger's eyes were cold. Gadjaloo. Gadjaloo immediately met Roger's gaze and the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. Looks like you want to fight. Roger clenched his fists slightly and was about to step forward, but he was stopped by Sting. Roger, I know you want to fight with Gadjaloo, just like I want to fight with Nazgul. Sting placed his hand on Logue's shoulder as he stared at Noah and the others. Suddenly he smiled. So, I won't allow this kind of thing to happen before me. Roger glanced at Sting, then looked deeply at Gadjaloo, and then silently retreated. Hey, Gadjaloo seemed to want to say something, but he was stopped by Noah. Okay, Gadjaloo. Noah said directly. If you want to fight, wait until the official competition starts. There will be plenty of opportunities. Don't worry about this. Gadjaloo's movements paused, and after a cold snort, he also obediently retreated. Suddenly Sting and his group immediately understood. Among the 5 people in front of them, it was obvious that Noah was the one in charge. You are that Noah Doria, right? Sting first sized up Noah, then looked at Lucius. Yes, he seems to have killed a Saint Great Magus 7 years ago. That's right, and he's also recognized by Makarov as the next leader of Fairy Tale. He seems to have a deeper reputation than Kilda's, who is known as the strongest magic shooter in the guild. Lucius smiled slightly. In terms of strength, he is probably not weaker than Kilda's. That's what my memory tells me. Is that so? Sting looked at Noah with an insufferably arrogant smile on his face. Very good. If not, it would be boring to snatch our first place. I'm looking forward to you a little. Don't let me be too bored. The next president of the Fallen Guild. Hearing this, Noah raised his eyes, met the gazes of Sting and his group, and spoke very calmly. I hope so. The lukewarm words made Sting ask for a snub. He curled his lips and stopped talking. At this moment, Noah suddenly felt an extremely intense gaze on him. At that moment, Noah turned his head and looked over, taking in the sight of a young girl. Chapter 1657. When Noah's eyes met with the owner of the intense gaze that was directed at him, the image of a delicate and beautiful young lady that entered his eyes involuntarily caused Noah to be slightly startled. That was because the extremely delicate and beautiful girl's eyes were full of all kinds of complicated emotions. Noah's words could clearly distinguish the main body of those emotions. Among them there was nostalgia, excitement, resentment, touching, and everything else. It was complicated to the extreme. Noah's eyebrows furrowed slightly when he sensed the extremely complicated gaze. Why is she looking at me like that? Just as Noah was puzzled, the members of Sabretooth seemed to have noticed the girl's abnormality. You know? Sting asked in confusion. What's wrong? Rog, Lucius, Alyaga, and the others immediately gathered their gazes on the girl named Yuno, causing her to close her eyes. Her delicate and beautiful face became tense without any expression. No, it's nothing. Although Sting, Rog, Lucius, Alyaga, and the others were still somewhat puzzled, they did not pay attention to Yuno anymore. Noah, on the other hand, was stunned once again and fell into deep thought. Yuno. He seemed to have heard this name somewhere before. Could it be that the girl named Yuno is someone I know? With that in mind, Noah began to search his memories. Unfortunately, before Noah could find anything from his memories, the magic formation in the center of the open space suddenly lit up again, and another door appeared, attracting everyone's attention. The next moment the door opened and a team walked out. Looking at that team, Noah could no longer search his memories, and a cold light appeared in his eyes. Not only Noah, but Mira, Jubian, and Gadgelu's expressions also became somewhat cold. Laxus's eyes became sharp, and he spoke in a low voice. Bastard Dad, did you really do it? Yo-ho-ho, another team has passed the preliminaries. Pumpkin began his introduction with a chuckle. Third place in the preliminaries, Raven Tail. The group of people who appeared from the door were the magic shooters from the Raven Tail. The leader of the group was a man with a tall stature. He wore an eye-catching golden armor with a pitch-black cloak on his back and a thick golden mask on his face. The armored man turned his head and looked in the direction of Noah's group. Under the mask, a creepy whisper sounded. Fairy Tale. As soon as they entered the arena, the Archmage from Raven Tail stared at Noah's group. However, these people did not do anything, nor did they say anything. They all moved to a corner and stayed there, collectively falling into silence. However, Noah stared intently at the armored man. After a long while, a mocking glint flashed in his deep, dark eyes. Are you going to use this trick? Laxus, who clearly saw the mocking light in Noah's eyes, pretended to be calm as he spoke. Did you discover anything? Of course. Noah retracted his gaze and threw this sentence at Laxus. However, let's just let them be for now. Is that okay? Laxus could not help but ask. Those guys will probably do something to us during the competition. The more they do, the more embarrassing it will be when they are exposed, Noah said calmly. Let's see what kind of performance that group of clowns is going to give. Laxus nodded and did not say anything else. Time passed under these circumstances. About 10 minutes later, the magic array lit up again. This time, the people who came out of the door were the first guild members who did not have any malicious intent towards Fairy Tale. The fourth place in the preliminaries is here, Pumpkin said. Fourth place, Lamia Scale. Hearing this guild name, Noah immediately raised his eyebrows and shifted his gaze. Long time no see, Sir Noah. The first person to greet Noah was none other than Jura. Ever since the 6 demon generals' oration cease, mission, we haven't seen each other for 7 years. Tura came in front of Noah with a happy expression. It's great that you were able to return safely from Skywolf Island. Thank you for your trouble, Mr. Tura. Noah looked at Tura and sighed. You've changed a lot too. After 7 years, Tura's image had indeed changed a lot. Now, not only did Tura dress like a monk, But he also grew a long beard. Compared to 7 years ago, he was more reserved and less aggressive. However, this did not mean that Tura had become weak. On the contrary, this sorcerer who was only at the bottom of the 10 great sorcerers 7 years ago had now risen to the 5th place. Noah could clearly feel that there was a surging amount of magic power hidden within Jura's body. His demonic power was on par with Kilda's. At this time, another person walked out from Tura's side. "Oh, do you still remember me?" "You are." Noah looked over and immediately recognized the other person. "You are Leo?" "Correct." Leo suddenly smiled. "Where's Gray? Is he not going to participate?" "Gray is in another team." Noah responded with a smile. "Don't worry, he will be here soon." "You're really confident." Leo spread out his hands. "Well, I'll be looking forward to it." During the conversation, another team came out of the magic array. 5th place in the preliminaries, Blue Pegasus. Along with Pumpkin's voice, a group of people that Noah was familiar with appeared from the magic array. Sniff, 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 sniff. A short, fat man with a strange appearance wearing a white suit moved his big nose as if he had discovered something. He suddenly raised his finger and pointed in Noah's direction, as if he was posing for a post. "There's a familiar smell." "Oh." Echo looked in the direction that the former was pointing. "Isn't that Fairy Tale's team?" Sure enough, Fairy Tale is here as well. Ivan flicked his bangs. "I wonder how those beautiful ladies are doing now." "Umph." Lotus turned her head away with a cold expression. "I'm not thinking about them. I just feel a little lonely if they don't come." Noah and the others were speechless. Just then, Iya suddenly widened his eyes and pointed in Myra's direction. "Look carefully, although Miss Alusha isn't here, Miss Mira is." As soon as Iya's voice fell, Xiang Lian and Yifan suddenly disappeared. When they reappeared, they actually formed a triangle and surrounded Mira in the middle. They knelt down on one knee as if they were proposing marriage with a sincere look on their faces. "Oh, I didn't expect to see Miss Mira here. I'm so lucky." "Echo, I didn't come here because I like you. I just feel a little sad if I don't come." "Lotus, I'm your fan, Miss Mira. Please give me a chance to have dinner with you." "Ivan." The 3 extremely good-looking men surrounded Mira and tried to please her. Mira was a little confused by their enthusiasm. However, in the next second, Mira showed an extremely perfect smile and reached out her hand to hug Noah's arm. "I'm really sorry. Although I appreciate your kindness, we're going to get married after the Great Demon Battle Arts competition. You're all good people. I hope you can find a good girl." The 3 of them, who were still maintaining their gentlemanly smiles, were stunned by the good guy card. Their faces stiffened. Immediately, the 3 men stared at Noah with bitter resentment. Noah was speechless. These guys were still the same as before. No one dared to compliment them. Chapter 1658. Just like that, time gradually passed as he continued to wait. After that, the 6th place also appeared. It was a guild called Mermaid Heel. It was said that there were only female members, and it was called the Dancers of the Sea. Of course, the members who represented the guild in the Great Demon Combat Arts exhibition were all female. And the person who led these members was a girl with long, straight, purplish-black hair with a white ribbon tied around her head. She looked cold and elegant, and she held a katana in her hand. When this girl appeared, she cast an extremely intense gaze at Noah, just like Yuno before. However, the other party's gaze was not like Yuno's, which contained all kinds of complicated emotions, but only an extremely pure examination. It was as if she knew Noah, making people feel that the other party had a certain degree of attachment to Noah. Not only that, among the members behind the girl, one of them was wearing a long robe that covered his face, and also cast a gaze at Noah. Although that gaze was not very intense, it carried a trace of ridicule and ridicule. Noah was really confused. Why did he feel that the people who came here had an affair with him? Apui, it was like they had a grudge against him? Moreover, they were all girls. What was going on? Allah Mira tightly hugged Noah's arm. Her smile was extremely sweet and warm. Noah is really popular. Undoubtedly, when saying this sentence, whether it was her expression or her voice, Mira was very sweet. But Noah felt a trace of coldness from the bottom of his heart, which made his back start to feel cold. Needless to say, this was the rhythm of a vinegar jar that was about to overturn. Noah could only twitch his face, secretly muttering in his heart. If it was Sheng Tianzi, Luo Hao, and Wendy, then forget it. But when did he provoke those girls? It seemed that after going back, it was necessary to investigate the origin of these people. After Noah made up his mind, the 7th place team appeared from the magic array. The team that appeared belonged to a guild called Cotter Cerberus. It was a guild that was quite famous even 7 years ago, and had many outstanding magic shooters. In this guild, it was said that not only were there extremely powerful magic shooters, but even the guild leader had a very good relationship with Makarov. And this guild was the exact opposite of Mermaid Heel. It was a group of hot-blooded men, and their emotions were very easily agitated. At the very least, after coming out of the magic circle, those guys gathered in a corner and shouted at the top of their lungs. They were so moved that they shed tears while shouting slogans. Just like Blue Pegasus, this guild was also incomparably strange. It was worth mentioning, the guild leader of Blue Pegasus had a very good relationship with Makarov. Noah really wanted to ask, "Grandpa, do you only make friends with strange personalities?" It was a pity that Makarov was not present. Otherwise, he would have lost all his face. Seeing that the 7th place had been decided, Noah and the others began to feel nervous. "There's only one team left to pass the preliminaries," Julian said nervously. Can the other team successfully enter the preliminaries? This was why the others were nervous. Only one team could pass the preliminaries. If Alusha's team couldn't find the exit of the maze, then they would be in big trouble. Tisk. Gadjaloo couldn't help but click his tongue. That fire dragon guy, what is he doing? It shouldn't be a problem, Mira comforted. There's still Alusha, they can definitely pass. Yeah, Noah said as he looked in the direction of the magic array. Moreover, it doesn't matter if we can pass or not. At least our guild has been selected, and we can at least enter the top 8 this year. But are you satisfied with just being in the top 8? Laxus seemed to have seen through Noah's thoughts and smirked. After the Great Demon Battle exhibition, it will be time for you to inherit the position of guild leader. Will you let your guild stop at the top 8? Do I need to explain that? Noah smiled knowingly. Of course not. Mira, Julian, Gadjaloo, and Laxus smiled at the same time. Clang dash. At this moment, the magic array finally lit up again. Everyone's gazes gathered on it. Bang dash. Accompanied by a loud noise, the door was violently pushed open. Then a group of 5 people fell out of the door together, landing on the ground one after another, causing a series of painful howls. Looking at the 5 people who jumped out of the door, everyone present had different expressions. The eyes of Noah's group lit up. Except for Noah's group, the rest of the people showed a shocked expression. The last place of the preliminaries is here, Pumpkin announced. 8th place Fairy Tale A team. What? Naz, who was pressed at the bottom, shouted. We're 8th place? Last place. Gray covered his face. How embarrassing. This is already very good. Lucy rubbed her butt and stood up with a pained expression. No matter what, we passed the preliminaries. That's right. Alusha cheered for everyone. The ranking in the preliminaries doesn't mean anything. All we need to do is to keep winning. Before that, Wendy, who was pressed down by Alusha, rolled her eyes. Sister Alusha, please get up quickly. The armor is so heavy. Suddenly, the silence in the arena was shattered by Alusha and the others. Seeing Alusha's group making a mess, the other guilds looked at each other. As expected of Fairy Tale, Kara praised from the bottom of her heart. You actually made it into 2 teams. Amazing. Naz Ragnar. Sting stared at Naz with an excited expression. You finally appeared. Miss Alusha. Yi made a post. You really didn't let me down. The others also had different reactions, which made Noah and the others look at each other. Seriously. Noah could only conclude with this sentence. The preliminaries are already so noisy. What are we going to do later? On the other side, Pumpkin coughed and attracted everyone's attention. The top 8 teams have been decided. The preliminaries of the Great Demon Battle exhibition have ended. The rankings of the guilds are as follows. First place, Fairy Tale B Team. Second place, Sabertooth. Third place, Raven Tail. Fourth place, Lamia Scale. Fifth place, Blue Pegasus. Sixth place, Mermaid Heel. Seventh place, Cotter Cerberus. Eighth place, Fairy Tale A Team. The above 8 teams will participate in the official competition of the Great Demon Battle exhibition. Pumpkin raised a finger. The official competition will be held tomorrow. The venue will be filled with spectators from all over the kingdom, and even from other parts of the continent. The king and the council will also be paying attention to this competition. Please be prepared. Don't make a fool of yourself, Pumpkin. As soon as he finished speaking, the people of the 8 teams began to look at the people they cared about. Noah's gaze swept across the teams and people standing in the venue. His eyes flickered slightly. The Great Demon Battle exhibition would begin tomorrow. When the time came, no one knew what would happen. However, no matter what happened, Noah only had one goal. The Fiori Kingdom. First place. Chapter 1659. At the same time as the preliminaries ended, the image of the giant pumpkin appeared once again in the sky above Coloches. At this point, the preliminaries of the Great Demon Battle exhibition have ended. The 8 teams have been selected, and the official competition will begin tomorrow. Welcome to the venue. After leaving this sentence, the image of the giant pumpkin disappeared. Then the steel city floating above Coloches suddenly shook, and all the contestants who were still inside were shaken out. Then like a mirage it disappeared. Thus, the screams of the sorcerers in the sky above Coloches echoed through the night sky as they fell to the ground one by one. The residents of Coloches watched this scene with great interest, and they discussed it animatedly. Although it's just the preliminaries, it seems quite interesting. Too bad there's no live broadcast. I wonder which guilds the teams that passed the preliminaries are from. Does that even need to be said? There must be a Sabertooth, right? Lamia Scale, who has always been in second place in previous years, must have also been selected. In the previous Great Demonic Battle exhibition matches, the results of the Blue Pegasus were also very good. I heard that there's also Mermaid Heel, who only accepts female members. Their strength is also quite good. Looks like this year's Great Demon Battle exhibition will be quite interesting. Of course, I heard that there's even one of the top 10 Saint Sorcerers among the contestants. No matter how I think about it, it won't be boring. Are you serious? Then I must go watch it tomorrow. Me too. Me too. For a moment, the whole of Coloches was filled with the noise of the residents. One must know that the preliminaries started at midnight. Now that the preliminaries were over, it was indeed very rare for it to still be so lively. However, in order to be able to watch the competition tomorrow, the residents chatted animatedly as they returned home, preparing to sleep early and wake up early. During this time, no one mentioned Fairy Tale. Perhaps, in the eyes of these people, the guild that had been at the bottom for 10,000 years must have been eliminated. Therefore, when the rankings of the qualifiers were announced the next day, the audience's expressions would be very interesting. It was something that could be predicted. On the other hand, some of the people involved were very unhappy. Damn it. On the way back to the hotel, Ness had been very unwilling. Why did Noah's team get first place, but my team only got last place? Are you still thinking about this? Lucy rubbed her forehead as if she had a headache. Didn't I say that passing the preliminaries is already very good? Not good at all. Ness shouted. Our goal is to get first place. Our goal is to be the champion of the Fiori Kingdom, not the champion of the qualifier, Gray said impatiently. Of the 8 teams that have passed the preliminaries, our guild has occupied 2 of the slots. One of them has even won first place in the preliminaries. You should be satisfied, Smelly Flame. I still don't feel good. Nazi pointed at Lucy. So Lucy, hurry up and let hubby eat you. Why do I have to be eaten if you're unhappy? Lucy couldn't help but complain. Also, of all the people who can eat, it has to be hubby. That's enough. Stop arguing. Alyssa was getting impatient. Tomorrow is the official competition. Save some energy for me and think about what to do tomorrow. But if it's a competition, what exactly will it be? Wendy tilted her head and looked a little uneasy. I feel a little nervous. Well, it's best to have a direct confrontation. Gray pulled his collar. If that's the case, we have no possibility of losing. Ahaha. Lucy laughed dryly. I hope that everything is not solved with violence. In the end, Alyssa, Nazi, Gray, Lucy, and Wendy were chatting happily about the Great Demon Battle exhibition. They were no different from the residents of Clocaska. On the other hand, Noah, Mira, Julian, Gadjalou, and Laxus didn't say much. They quietly walked behind Alyssa and the others with a helpless expression. It's always so noisy no matter what. Gadjalou curled his lips. When will it be quieter? Isn't it good? Zhu Bian smiled. After all, it's a ceremony. A ceremony should be lively. Mira held Noah's arm and walked with Noah while smiling. Why don't our guild hold a ceremony too? I'm not against it. Laxus closed his eyes and crossed his arms as he slowly opened his mouth. As long as that old man's wallet is enough. In other words, these people were also enjoying it. Noah could only look at his companions in amusement, but his heart was unbelievably calm. At this moment, a voice sounded in Noah's heart. Seeing how noisy these people are, I also feel a sense of tranquility. What an incredible group of people. Hearing this voice, Noah was startled at first. Then he smiled silently in his heart. But this is the fairy tale. Is that so? Athena was a little skeptical, but at the same time, she seemed to agree with him. I more or less understand why you're so obsessed with this so-called guild. As soon as Athena's words fell, another voice sounded in Noah's heart. It's indeed incredible. Aster rarely said such rational and emotional words. In the past, I've never seen a human who can easily affect the mood of an elf. After all, the relationship between humans and elves was specious. At least, in the world of the sword dance of the elves, if a human wanted to affect the mood of an elf, unless they did something extremely bad and made the elves furious. If they wanted to make the elves feel better and closer to humans, they would have to offer a sword dance and divine music ceremony. However, the group of people in the fairy tale relied on their own actions to naturally affect the mood of the elves. No wonder Aster gave them such an incredible evaluation. In this regard, Noah just smiled. But this is the fairy tale. The same sentence, but it was approved by both Aster and Athena, and they fell into silence. At this moment Mira, who was holding Noah's hand, suddenly spoke. Noah in front. Hearing this, Noah subconsciously looked to the front and stopped in his tracks. His companions also followed Noah and stopped. This was because in the middle of the road, a person stood there, blocking everyone's path. Who? A gust of wind blew past, and the snow-white coat on the girl's body fluttered. The snow-white girl stood under the moonlight, and a pair of beautiful eyes stared at them. There were indescribable waves in her eyes. Looking at the delicate and beautiful girl under the moonlight, Alyssia's expression froze. You're the archmage of the saber-tooth? The girl who blocked their path and suddenly appeared here was Sinnoh of the saber-tooth. Ignoring Alyssia's question, Sinnoh lifted her feet and slowly walked over. Naz and Gray almost reflexively clenched their fists and planned to go forward. However, before Naz and Gray could take a step forward, their shoulders were tightly pressed down. At this moment, Naz and Gray were startled at the same time. They turned their heads and looked behind them. The person who entered Naz and Gray's eyes was Noah. Noah. Naz and Gray were surprised. Noah shook his head, patted Naz and Gray's shoulders, and immediately walked past them. He went to the front of the group and met Sinnoh's gaze. Noah understood. This young girl was definitely here for him. Chapter 1660. An extremely silent and strange atmosphere pervaded the air. At this moment, there was only Noah's group on the huge street. On the opposite side, the girl named Xue Nai seemed to be riding on the moonlight as she quietly walked towards Noah's group step by step. However, in Xue Nai's eyes that were filled with strong willpower, there was no one else other than Noah. As if she didn't see the existence of the other people in fairy tale at all, Xuanai came to a distance of 2 to 3 meters away from Noah and stared straight at Noah. Looking at the gentle yet strong girl's eyes, Noah confirmed one thing in his heart. As expected, this girl named Xuanai had some kind of connection with him. In addition, Noah felt that the name was familiar, as if he had heard it somewhere before. Noah felt that he should know her. However, he definitely wasn't familiar with her. With Noah's memory, if she really knew him, then Noah definitely wouldn't have forgotten her. Therefore, she shouldn't be familiar with him. It was even possible that they had only met once, or even just met by chance. However, if that was the case, then there was a problem. The girl named Xuanai looked at Noah with eyes that clearly contained very complicated and strong feelings. In a situation where they had only met once, or even just met by chance, was it possible for a person to have such strong feelings for another person? Just as Noah was thinking about this question, the girl named Xuanai spoke. Moreover, the moment she spoke, everyone present stood up in shock. Please leave fairy tale. An extremely sudden and shocking sentence came out of Xuanai's mouth just like that. What? Everyone exclaimed in shock. Leave fairy tale? Noah couldn't help but be stunned on the spot. Noah had thought about why Xuanai came to find him. However, no matter how much he thought about it, Noah didn't expect that Xuanai would say such a sentence the moment she opened her mouth. Leave fairy tale? This girl named Xuanai came in front of him just to make him leave fairy tale? Why? You bastard. Naz raised his fist and shouted without hesitation. It's impossible for Noah to leave fairy tale. Xuanai didn't care about Naz's shouts at all. She only stared at Noah, as if Noah was the only person left in the whole world. She only showed excessive attachment to Noah. This made Naz's heart burn with anger. Just as he was about to say something, he was immediately stopped by Alusha. Enough, Naz. Alusha looked at Xuanai with a serious expression. Let's leave this to Noah. The rest of the people, including Mira, also nodded. Their eyes were focused on Noah and Xuanai, choosing to watch from the sidelines. It was only then that Noah reacted. He frowned deeply and said, That's right. Why? Hearing Noah's question, Xuanai said without hesitation. This guild doesn't deserve you. You should be in the Fiori Kingdom's strongest magic guide guild, not this kind of guild at the bottom. This was another sentence that was out of everyone's expectations. Gadjaloo, who originally thought that the people from Saber-Tooth were here to find trouble, interrupted in an extremely bored manner. So you're here to poach? How boring. These words infuriated Xuanai. What can you understand? Xuanai's gaze was like an arrow, shooting at the group of people behind Noah. This lord is a sorcerer who belongs to the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom. He used to be, and he still is, but he is no longer your fairy tale. The stubbornness and strangeness in Xuanai's words made the group of magic shooters from fairy tale look at each other in dismay. It sounded like the other party was belittling and looking down on fairy tale. But everyone felt that compared to this, Xuanai seemed to care more about the title of the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom. Indeed, currently the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom was Saber-Tooth. Could it be that this girl was here to show off? But what did that have to do with Noah? Everyone was puzzled. Not to mention the rest of the people, even Noah was a little confused. It was just that Noah at least understood Xuanai's meaning. In other words, Noah looked at Xuanai. Do you want me to join Saber-Tooth? Yes. Xuanai nodded heavily, her tone revealing a strong emotion that had never been seen before. You should be a sorcerer from the strongest guild in the Kingdom of Fiori. You shouldn't stay in a guild that has always been at the bottom. Please leave fairy tale. Only Saber-Tooth is worthy of my lord. After saying this, Xuanai's gaze swept over the group of people behind Noah. You should be the ones who know Lord Noah's ability the best. Don't tell me that you think the current fairy tale is worthy of this lord? Xuanai's criticism, whether intentional or not, made everyone completely angry. You are called Xuanai, right? Alusha took a step forward and looked straight at Xuanai. Although I don't know why you are so obsessed with Noah, but I can tell you with certainty that Noah's place is fairy tale. This, no matter what, will not change. Exactly. Lucy could not help but speak up. Indeed. In the past, Fairy Tale was at the bottom of the kingdom of Fiori. But today, we've also passed the preliminaries and confirmed our position as one of the top 8 guilds. For the next year, we'll be at least one of the top 8 guilds. Moreover, we are not satisfied with just being in the top 8. Gray glanced at Xuanai. Maybe you are right, with Noah's ability, he should be in the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom. That is why we are here. Wendy's heart seemed to be filled with unlimited courage, and for the first time, she spoke with a resolute and decisive tone. We will definitely win in the Great Magic Battle Exhibition, and become the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom once again. That's right. Naz fiercely punched his fist, and his eyes became sharp. If Noah should only be in the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom, then this guild can only be Fairy Tale. Everyone's words were filled with a strong will, and Xuanai could not help but take 2 steps back, and her eyes were slightly shaken. However, this slight wavering immediately disappeared. That is impossible, Xuanai said with a trembling voice. The strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom can only be Sabertooth. Oh. Laxus slightly narrowed his eyes, and a dangerous glint appeared in his eyes. Then do you want to try? Thus, the atmosphere at the scene transitioned to a very dangerous level. Noah's eyebrows were tightly knitted, and he was puzzled by Xuanai's unusual attitude towards him. This girl did not seem to have any hostility towards him. It should be said that it was the opposite, and every word and sentence of Xuanai revealed a kind of extreme respect and longing for Noah. But it was also because of this that Noah was puzzled. Why was Xuanai so obsessed with him? If it was a person who had such strong feelings for him, how could he not recognize her? What was going on? Xuanai did not know what to think of Noah's silence, but after a moment of silence, she raised her head and looked straight at Noah, and her eyes flashed with determination. If that is the case, please accept my challenge. Chapter 1661. Challenge. At this moment, all the magic shooters in Fairy Tale were startled. However, Xuanai only had eyes for Noah. She stared at Noah's face and said, "If I win, my lord must leave Fairy Tale and join Sabertooth." Before Noah could respond, Naz stood up. Interesting. Naz's eyes became extremely bright. The space around him began to fill with heat waves, causing the air to distort. Noah, let me fight it out with her. Think carefully before you speak, you idiot. Gray was speechless. If you lose, then Noah will have to join Sabertooth. It doesn't matter, Naz said with conviction. In any case, I won't lose. Wait. No matter what, your opponent is still a Sabertooth sorcerer. Lucy hurriedly said. If you accidentally lose, what will happen to Noah? That's right. Wendy couldn't help but say. At least let Sister Elusha, Sister Mira, or Brother Laxus fight. I'm fine with it. Laxus said expressionlessly. If my brother is poached to another guild, even I won't sit back and do nothing. I'm fine with it too. Myra's expression became serious. Now, no matter who the opponent is, I won't lose. After all, if I lose, the companion I grew up with will leave me. Elusha looked at Xuanai with a sharp gaze. So, I don't mind fighting. Then I'll interfere too. Gadjaloo grinned. Trying to poach someone in front of me? That's really annoying. Zhubian also has no problem, Zhubian also said. Julian won't be merciful. Clearly, Xuanai's words had also stimulated the members of Fairy Tale. Most importantly, if this challenge was about whether Noah could stay in the guild, then everyone was absolutely duty-bound. They definitely wouldn't lose. This was the belief in the hearts of the people of Fairy Tale. Noah was naturally very grateful for this, but Xuanai didn't appreciate it. There's only one person I want to challenge. Xuanai stared at Noah without blinking. Please accept my challenge. Noah was silent. After a while, Noah said faintly, Give up. Give up. You can't beat me. No, Xuanai said stubbornly. I won't lose. I don't understand why you're so obsessed with me. Noah finally said what was in his heart. But I have to tell you, if there is a place I should be, it is definitely not the Sabertooth, but the Fairy Tale. Xuanai's pretty face suddenly sank, and she looked at Noah with some sadness in her eyes. She bit her lips and squeezed out these words. Undoubtedly, you said that you're a sorcerer from the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom. Noah didn't hear Xuanai's words, and could only frown again. What did you say? Xuanai didn't answer, but raised her head again, looked deeply at Noah, and said, I'll prove to you that no matter what, Fairy Tale is no match for Sabretooth. Xuanai's tone became resolute. At that time, you'll naturally understand which guild is the place you should be in. Leaving behind these words, Xuanai turned around and once again took a quiet step. Riding on the beautiful moonlight, she left without looking back, leaving behind a beautiful but somewhat desolate back view for everyone. The street fell into silence. Everyone looked at Xuanai's desolate back view, and at the same time, focused their attention on Noah. In the end, it was Mira who asked softly, Do you know the girl named Xuanai? I don't think I know her. At least I don't think I know her. Noah sighed. So, to be more precise, I should say I've seen her somewhere, or there's something I don't know, or even can't remember, right? Hearing this, everyone didn't say anything. Noah took a deep breath and looked at Alusha. I want to investigate two people. One is Xuanai, right? Alusha said directly. Who's the other one? In Mermaid Heel. Isn't there a leader with a katana? Noah didn't hold back, and said concisely. The other one is her. I see. Alusha nodded. I'll ask my companions in the guild to investigate. I'll help too. Mira held Noah's hand tightly, but her eyes didn't retract from the direction Xuanai left. I feel like I can't just sit back and watch that kid. Mira's words were exactly what Noah was thinking. Yeah. Noah looked at the direction Xuanai left, and muttered softly. We can't just sit back and watch. After returning to the hotel, Noah told Makarov that Team A and Team B had both passed the preliminaries, and were about to participate in the official competition. After reporting the good news, he asked Makarov to help him investigate the two girls. Makarov didn't know why Noah wanted to investigate the two girls, but he didn't ask. He only thought that Noah was concerned about the two girls who were his opponents. Then, he promised that he would immediately obtain the information that Noah wanted. Needless to say, Makarov did it. Relying on his previous connections and his reputation as one of the top 10 St. Magus, Makarov successfully obtained the information that Noah wanted. He even obtained the information of the other opponents in the Great Demon Combat Arts competition, and brought it to Noah. Thus, Noah immediately looked at the information of the two girls that he was concerned about. In a room in the hotel, Noah sat on the edge of the bed, and in his hands was a document labeled Mermaid Heel. As soon as he opened the document, Noah saw the person he wanted to investigate. Then Noah slowly read out the name of the other party. Kagura Mikazuki. Kagura Mikazuki. She belonged to the guild Mermaid Heel, and was publicly recognized as the strongest archmage in the guild. This girl named Kagura wasn't the guild leader of Mermaid Heel, but she was the de facto leader of Mermaid Heel. Not only was her strength extremely powerful, she also had excellent physical and swordsmanship. Even without using magic, she could easily defeat the majority of archmages. Regarding this girl, there was such an evaluation in the document. In this year's Great Demon Combat Arts exhibition, the archmage second only to the 10 great saint archmages, Teraresis? Noah muttered. Then, why would such a powerful archmage look at me like that? Noah didn't understand. If it was Yuno, Noah could still faintly feel that he had heard this name somewhere before, and that he should have seen her somewhere before. But for this girl named Kagura, Noah didn't feel the slightest bit of familiarity. Without a doubt, Noah definitely didn't know this person. But why would a person he didn't know look at him like that? This feels really strange. Of course, compared to the strange feeling, Noah felt more of a headache. He attracted the attention of two girls for no reason, and they were very persistent, and he didn't know them. Anyone would feel like their head was as big as a bull. Oh right, there's another person wearing a cloak. Noah continued to flip through the document. In the next second, Noah saw a name and showed a startled expression. It's her. Chapter 1662. Noah didn't have any impression of Kagura from Mermaid Heel, so he was sure that he didn't know this girl. However, when Noah saw the name of the person who followed behind Kagura in the Mermaid Heel, who was wearing a black robe and looking at him with ridicule and mockery in the venue, he immediately remembered who that person was. So she joined Mermaid Heel? Noah looked at the information in his hand, and his heart slightly moved. Could it be that Kagura has some relationship with her, so she acted like that to me? The more he thought about it, the more Noah felt that it was possible. Fortunately, it's not like I don't have any clues. This way, the investigation will be valuable. Of course, although Noah noticed Kagura's words, he didn't care that much. After all, when Kagura looked at Noah at the venue, rather than saying that she was persistent, it would be better to say that she was overly scrutinizing him. Compared to Kagura, Yukino's matter was more important. Thinking of this, Noah directly put down the information marked Mermaid Heel in his hand and pulled out the part marked Sabertooth from the pile of information next to him. After flipping through the information of Sabertooth, Noah directly found Yukino's information. Yukino Agulia. Yukino Agulia. He belonged to the Sabertooth and was a rather famous sorcerer in the Sabertooth. As everyone knew, the guild known as Sabertooth was just a small guild 7 years ago. Later on, they replaced a guild leader and brought in 5 powerful sorcerers. From then on, they soared to the sky and became famous in the kingdom of Fiori. After 7 years, Sabertooth was now the most famous guild in the kingdom. Even excluding the 5 powerful sorcerers who were introduced to the guild and changed the situation of the guild, there was no longer a lack of strong sorcerers in the guild. And Yukino was a famous sorcerer, who could be ranked in the top 10 of Sabertooth. According to the information, after the preliminaries of the Great Demon Martial Arts Exhibition, among the Sabertooth team that appeared at the venue, 4 of them were the Archmages who had changed the name of Sabertooth. Only Snow was an exception. In order to obtain the qualifications to appear together with Sting, Logue, Lucifer, and Alyaga, Snow defeated all the other members of the Sabertooth ranking competition, except for the 5 magic shooters who had changed their guild. She stood out from the crowd and came to this stage. At first glance, it seemed that Yukino was quite impressive, but in fact in the beginning, Yukino wasn't that conspicuous. Noah, who was looking at Yukino's information, frowned in the next second. How many times have you applied to join Sabertooth, only to be rejected? That's right. In the beginning, Yukino wasn't even allowed to join Sabertooth. She tried to join the guild several times but was mercilessly rejected. This was because the guild leader who brought Sabertooth to the peak used absolute terror to control the entire guild. The guild's order and atmosphere were as strict as an army, and he didn't allow any weak members to appear in the guild. Furthermore, if someone did something that even slightly disgraced the name of the strongest guild, even if it was just a single defeat, they would be expelled from the guild by the guild leader. The guild called Sabertooth was just that strict and urgent. Yukino had applied to join Sabertooth at the beginning but was rejected because she was too weak. However, in order to join Sabertooth, Yukino worked hard to hone her magic skills. She went to their door several times before finally gaining recognition and joining Sabertooth. She stood out from all the other members and caught up to the 5 powerful sorcerers who changed the guild. And yet, such a young girl was using a type of magic that surprised Noah. Star magic. Yukino was a star magic sorcerer. Moreover, according to reliable information, this young girl most likely had the keys to the 12 zodiac temples, and more than one. Yukino. Star magic. Noah only felt a trace of inspiration in his mind. This girl, I really do know her. Although he still couldn't remember whether it was the name Yukino or the trace of inspiration regarding star magic, it all told Noah that he had some connection with this young girl. However, since Noah couldn't remember, it proved that to Noah, it should be something unimportant. However, to Yukino, it should be a very important matter, right? Or else, Yukino wouldn't be so obsessed with Noah. Closing the information in his hands, Noah casually threw it on the bed, got up, and went to the window, looking at the night sky outside. In the silent night sky, there were a lot of stars, giving off an indescribable feeling of peace. Noah looked at the night sky, and soon after looked in one direction. I remember Sabertooth's hotel is in that direction, right? Saying this, Noah's mouth slowly raised. Let's just treat it as scouting the enemy. After saying this, Noah directly stepped on the windowsill and jumped out of the window, turning into a ray of light, flying towards one of the directions in Coloca's. In Coloca's, there was a hotel named Garden. As the name suggested, it was a hotel that looked like a garden. This inn was where Sabertooth stayed during the Great Demonic Battle exhibition. At this moment, in one of the extremely spacious rooms in the hotel, many magic shooters were gathered here. These sorcerers were naturally all from the Sabertooth sorcerers. However, at this moment, these magic shooters were lined up neatly as if they were an army. Sting, Rog, Lucifer, Alyaga, and Yukino were at the front of the line. Based on this arrangement, it was easy to tell who had the highest position in the Sabertooth. The so-called Sabertooth was a guild that determined one's status based on strength. And at the front of the neatly arranged magic shooters, there was a person sitting on a throne-like seat. This person was extremely tall and sturdy, even more exaggerated than Alyaga. He was about 2 meters tall and dressed like a sand monk. A string of prayer beads hung around his neck, and the guild's emblem was imprinted on his forehead. His face was extremely ferocious. This person was the guild leader of Sabertooth, Germain. Looking at Germain, who was sitting upright in his seat, the members of Sabertooth all held their breaths, not daring to even breathe. This was because everyone knew that Germain was in a very bad mood. No, it should be said that he had already entered a state of rage. Second place. A low voice came out of Germain's mouth like a tiger's roar. The famous Sabertooth, that has always stood at the top, revered by countless people, looked up to by countless people, feared by countless people, because of a trashy guild that has been at the bottom for 10,000 years, now can only lower themselves to second place. Everyone's palms began to sweat. It had to be said that Germain's voice, filled with anger, was really too scary. Chapter 1663. In fact, Germain was in a very bad mood right now. Sabertooth, the guild that was known as the strongest guild and stood at the peak of all the guilds in the kingdom, had actually placed second in the preliminaries before the official competition began? Germain could already imagine how many people would treat Sabertooth as a joke when this news spread. Of course, this was only Germain's imagination. To the average citizen, the fact that Sabertooth could only place second in the qualifiers was shocking. However, what was even more shocking was the fact that Fairy Tail was the one who took away Sabertooth's first place. After all, Fairy Tail had always been at the bottom. This time, they had surpassed all the other guilds in the preliminary round and obtained first place. This would definitely cause a lot of people to be surprised. However, to say that Sabertooth was a joke because of this would be overestimating Sabertooth too much. It wasn't like Sabertooth was the only team that was overtaken. There were so many guilds in the Fiori Kingdom, but all of them had been overtaken. Who would specifically laugh at Sabertooth? However, Germain had treated the first place as something that was already in his bag. He thought that if this was taken away from him, others would definitely laugh at Sabertooth. It could only be said that Germain had taken Sabertooth's first place for granted. As such, when this fact was broken, Germain was so angry. The only guild that can make others look up to is Sabertooth. It has always been like this. No one can make Sabertooth look up to them, let alone Fairy Tail, who started to fall from grace 7 years ago. Germain's extremely cold gaze swept across everyone below. You should understand what I mean, right? The people who were swept by Germain's gaze couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. In the end, it was Sting who took a step forward and lowered his head. As if he was reporting to his superior, he spoke respectfully. President, please rest assured, we will not lose again. Remember your promise. Germain said expressionlessly. Remember, my Sabertooth doesn't need trash who can't win. Yes. Sting could only reply in a low voice. The anger in Germain's heart subsided a lot. Then he turned his gaze to Xuanai. I heard that after the preliminary round ended, you went to look for someone from Fairy Tail. Xuanai's heart suddenly tightened, and she couldn't help but lower her head. Looking at Xuanai, Germain said heartlessly, Tell me, Why did you look for someone from that trash guild? Xuanai opened her mouth and finally squeezed out this sentence. I want that person to join. Before Xuanai could finish her sentence, she was rudely interrupted by Germaine. My saber-tooth does not need someone from that trash guild, Germaine said matter-of-factly. You are not allowed to mention this matter again. Clearly, Germaine knew very well who the person Xuanai was talking about was, and she also knew what Xuanai was planning. Thus, once she opened her mouth, Germaine completely shut down Xuanai's hopes and ideas. Xuanai's heart trembled, and she couldn't help but raise her head and speak emotionally. But that person is not weak, he just stayed in a guild that he shouldn't be in. If we can get that person to join Sabertooth, then our Sabertooth will definitely become stronger. When this sentence was said, not only Germaine, but everyone else was shocked. Of course, what shocked everyone was not the content of Xuanai's words, but the fact that Xuanai actually dared to stand up and refute Germaine's decision. To put it bluntly, in Sabertooth, Germaine was the god. It could be seen from the fact that the guild's order and atmosphere were as strict as an army by Germaine. In other words, Germaine did not allow anyone to disagree with her. This person sincerely treated Sabertooth as her personal property, and she could create it as she pleased. Under such circumstances, if someone disagreed with Germaine, then even if it was not a death wish, it could only be said that they were overestimating their own strength. Thus, Germaine's gaze was fixed on Xuanai, and she straightened her back like a tiger that got up. So you're saying that someone from a bottom-tier guild can change the entire Sabertooth, just like that? Xuanai bit her lips and spoke softly. I just think that person is not weak. Not weak? Germaine turned her head and looked at Lucifer. Lucifer, the person that Xuanai mentioned, what do you think? From the surface, I can't see his depth. Lucifer pressed down on his hat and answered truthfully. However, that person had killed a Saint Archmage 7 years ago. Even if he hadn't made any progress in the past 7 years, he should still be much more powerful than the average Archmage. That's what my memory says. Have you ever killed one of the 10 great Saint Grand Magi? Germaine asked in a non-committal manner. That was only 7 years ago. However, you're right. Even if it was only 7 years ago, being able to kill a great Archmage Saint proves that he's stronger than the average trash. But, our Sabertooth does not need someone who can't keep up with the times. Germaine glanced at Xuanai. In this year's Great Demon Battle exhibition, that Rock Iron Jilla also appeared. If he can defeat Rock Iron Jilla, then I can consider letting him join. When she said this, Germaine's tone faintly carried a bit of sarcasm. It was clear that Germaine did not think that Noah could defeat Jilla. It wasn't just Germaine. Even the rest of the members of Sabertooth had a look of disbelief on their faces. They all thought that this was an impossible matter. That was natural. Even if Germaine was a dictator, even if she was confident, in front of the 5th Saint Archmage, she would not dare to say that she could surpass him. From Germaine's point of view, Sabertooth was without a doubt the strongest guild in the game. As a member of this guild, no matter who it was, as long as they failed once, they had to be eliminated. In this great magic combat drill, the only opponent that Germaine would allow her members to lose against was the 5th-ranked Grand Magus, Jura. Even the arrogant Germaine believed that no one in the guild could defeat Turtledove, and allowed them to fail. Needless to say, there was no one in the guild that could defeat Turtledove. Thus, Germaine's words were pure mockery. In this regard, Xuanai naturally understood. She could only close her eyes, hide all her emotions, and no longer speak. The entire hall was silent. No one noticed. On the roof of the hotel, a person was lying on his back, looking at the night sky and listening to the conversation of the members of Sabertooth. Consider letting me join? Noah indifferently smiled. That smile was truly filled with sarcasm and ridicule. Looks like I have to show a little bit of my ability tomorrow, and let these people know that the person they need to look up to is a tiger or a fairy. After saying this, Noah directly got up, turned into a ray of light, and flew into the sky, disappearing into the night sky. Chapter 1664. The next day, when the sky gradually brightened up, many residents of Colokas had already woken up. These residents who had woken up were all heading to the dome to watch the great demon martial arts competition. Therefore, early in the morning, the streets of Colocas were crowded with people. People walked in groups of 2s and 3s. And as the tide of people surged, they began to move towards the dome. These people who were able to go to the dome to watch the great demon martial arts competition were very lucky people who bought tickets. After all, although the dome wasn't small, it couldn't hold the entire population of Colocas, let alone those who came from all over the kingdom, and even the mainland. Therefore, the existence of tickets was a matter of course. As for those who couldn't buy tickets, they could watch the live broadcast from other places. For an annual festival like the Great Demon Martial Arts Competition, no matter which pub, which hotel, or even the streets, one could watch the live broadcast. These people didn't need to wake up so early, so they continued to lie in their beds and sleep comfortably. However, that didn't mean that they would sleep for long. Bang 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 bang. In the sky above the dome, the sound of firecrackers and fireworks kept echoing in the air. Balloons were released from the venue and floated into the sky. Combined with the firecrackers and fireworks everywhere, the scene couldn't be described as not lively. As the audience entered the venue, the atmosphere of the entire venue gradually heated up. Cheers. It was noisy. Firecrackers and fireworks. All kinds of voices were mixed together, making the entire scene seem like a festival, bustling with noise and excitement. On the rostrum of the venue, there were 3 people sitting side by side. The person in the lead picked up the microphone and gave a passionate speech to the entire venue. Hello everyone, I am Chabadi Laura. I would like to extend my greetings to everyone from all over the kingdom. The audience immediately cheered enthusiastically, causing Chapati Lola to cough involuntarily. His tensed-up face was about to relax as he pointed to the side of him. In this year's Great Demon Combat Arts Competition, I will be in charge of giving you a live report. The person in charge of commentating is the former member of the Senate. It is said that he is also one of the 10 great Saint Magi who has returned after missing for 7 years, Mr. Yajma, a close friend of Makarov Dolia. Sitting beside Chabadi was the counselor who had met Noah once in the council, and had a good relationship with Makarov Ajama. Back then, after the commotion at the Paradise Tower, the council was disbanded due to various reasons. Now the new council was responsible for maintaining the peace of the magic world. After that, Yajma also stepped down from his position as a counselor, and opened a restaurant as a chef. Now, Yajma was invited to be the commentator of the Great Demon Combat Arts Competition, but he was still wearing a chef's outfit and waving to everyone with a benevolent expression. In addition to me and Mr. Yajma who are in charge of commentating, during the Great Demon Combat Arts Competition, we will invite a guest every other day to watch the competitions of the Magic Guide Guild with us. Chabadi's voice was still enthusiastic. On the first day, the guest we invited is the cover girl of the Magic Weekly, a top model we are familiar with, Miss Jenny of Blue Pegasus. Following Chabadi's words on the rostrum, sitting next to Yajma, a beautiful girl wearing a princess-style dress with long, light blonde curly hair tied into a ponytail raised her hand and waved to the audience. The audience immediately burst into cheers that were even more enthusiastic than before, causing Jenny to beam with joy. It seems that Mr. Yajma and Miss Jenny are very famous. Here, I might as well interview the 2 of you for everyone. Chabadi understood the atmosphere very well, and asked Yajma who was next to him. Mr. Yajma, as a former counselor, in your professional opinion, which guild is more worthy of our expectations in this Great Demon Combat Arts Competition? If I have to say, actually, every guild is very worthy of everyone's expectations. Yajma nodded leisurely. But personally, I am more looking forward to Fairy Tale. Oh, is that so? Chabadi said in surprise. But didn't Fairy Tale always end up at the bottom of the list in the past? You also said that that was in the past. Yajma laughed. In this year's Great Demon Combat Exhibition, the main force members who had been missing for 7 years will also appear. Back then, these members were all very powerful archmages. Now that they have returned after 7 years, what kind of performance will they bring? I am very much looking forward to this. So that's how it is. The Dark Horse is indeed very worthy of people's expectations. Chabadi nodded and turned to ask Jenny who was next to Yajma. Then, which guild does Miss Jenny think is likely to win? Of course it's Blue Pegasus. Jenny said without any hesitation. This year, we came to win. We will definitely not lose to anyone. Could it be that Miss Jenny doesn't have any expectations for Fairy Tale? Chabadi took advantage of the opportunity to ask. It is said that in this year's Fairy Tale, as Miss Jenny's senior and also a top model, Miss Mira, who everyone likes very much, will also appear? If that's the case, in fact, I am more looking forward to Miss Mira's rumored fiancé. Jenny's face showed a perfect smile. What kind of person is he to be able to capture the most beautiful girl in the modeling world? Who's ranked #1 in the Magic Weekly rankings? And who was once the most beautiful girl in the modeling world? Personally, I'm very much looking forward to finding out. Jenny's words made the entire audience begin to shout loudly. Many of them had a look of deep hatred on their faces, and tears even flowed from their eyes. Obviously, Jenny's words resonated with many people. Of course, it was not anticipation, but resentment. After 7 years, Myra's popularity was still so high. It was terrifying. In this regard, Chabadi nodded repeatedly. Indeed. Even I can't help but look forward to the man who can go down the aisle with the beloved Miss Mira. What kind of man is he? Let us all wait and see. After saying this, Chabadi went into the main topic. Then this year's Great Demon Battle Arts exhibition is about to begin. The 8 teams that passed the preliminaries will enter the arena. Now let us announce the rankings of the preliminaries to everyone. After saying this, a huge projection screen flashed in the center of the venue. On the screen, from top to bottom, the rankings of the major guilds were marked. First place, Fairy Tale B Team. Second place, Saber-Tooth. Third place, Raven Tail. Fourth place, Lamia Scale. Fifth place, Blue Pegasus. Sixth place, Mermaid Heel. Seventh place, Cotter Cerberus. Eighth place, Fairy Tale A Team. Looking at this ranking, many people in the audience began to clamor. That Saber-Tooth is only in second place? First place is actually Fairy Tale? It can't be? Suddenly, a commotion began to arise in the audience. Chapter 1665. For a moment, the entire space of the venue was filled with confused and surprised noises from the audience. Moreover, when they saw that Fairy Tale had actually been selected for 2 teams, everyone was even more surprised and rowdy. As if he had already expected this scene, Chabadi held the microphone tightly and spoke to Yajima. It seems that the results of Fairy Tale have surprised everyone. Mr. Yajima, what do you think? I can only say that Fairy Tale really didn't let me down. Yajima looked very satisfied. I believe that after this, Fairy Tale will definitely show us her former glory and strength, and let everyone acknowledge her. That's true. Chabadi nodded and looked at Jenny. Then what do you think, Miss Jenny? Well, I don't think everyone needs to be so surprised, Jenny said with a smile. It doesn't matter what kind of guild it is. If it can make the Great Demon Battle Arts exhibition more exciting and lively, wouldn't that be great? As expected of Mr. Yajima and Miss Jenny, I can't help but admire their views. Chabadi raised his voice. So, I asked the audience to look forward to the performance of the former king, our Fairy Tale. The conversation between the 3 people on the rostrum made the audience in the auditorium stop their noise and began to cheer in agreement. It had to be said that this live reporter called Chabadi really had some skills. He had been firmly controlling the atmosphere of the venue and didn't forget to hype it up. No wonder he was selected as the live reporter of the annual Great Demon Battle Arts exhibition. Then Chabadi began to announce. Then, let's invite our contestants to enter. At this moment, under the 8 directions of the auditorium, the passages began to flash with magical light. Dazzling special effects bloomed at the entrances of the 8 passages at the same time, igniting the hearts of the audience. Immediately after, under everyone's gaze, 8 teams slowly walked out from within. Oh! Loud and clear cheers soared into the sky, shaking the atmosphere. At the entrance of one of the passages, Noah led Mira, Julian, Gadjalu, and Laxus forward on foot. Looking at Noah, who was leading the 4 people forward, many people in the spectator seats began to discuss spiritedly. Is that Miss Myra's fiancé? He doesn't look that good. However, his aura is not bad. Is he the one who led Fairy Tale's team and got first place in the preliminaries? Isn't the person beside him Miss Mira? Looks like it's him. Noah, who could clearly hear the discussions coming from all directions, couldn't help but feel somewhat helpless. Noah, who was waiting for his turn in the contestant area, naturally heard the conversation between the 3 people on the rostrum. At this moment, even Noah couldn't help but feel sorrowful. Of all the people, why did you mention me? Undoubtedly, one of the 10 saint magicians was also a contestant. In terms of fame and popularity, it should have been him. Of course, in terms of fame and popularity, Mira was not inferior to Jula. If it weren't for the 7-year gap, which gave Mira a chance to appear in front of the public, her fame and popularity would have been much higher than Jula's. Now, because of this fame and popularity, Noah directly became the most conspicuous existence. Everyone pointed their spears at the man who had won over such a famous and popular supermodel. Haha. Mira seemed to be very happy. Her eyes narrowed as she smiled. Noah is really popular. Really? Noah glanced at Mira grumpily. I just don't know who it is because of. Mira smiled and ignored Noah's grumpiness. Looking at the audience who were pointing at Noah, she mischievously hugged Noah's arm and intimately snuggled up to him. This time, the audience no longer burst into cheers. Instead, it stirred up a burst of cries and howls as if they had been stimulated. All of them were shedding tears of blood. All of them focused their eyes full of anger, jealousy, and resentment on Noah. At this time, Noah really had the urge to turn around and leave. At that moment, Noah sensed an extremely strong gaze being cast on him. There were 4 different gazes. One of them actually came from the armored man from Raventail. As early as last night, Noah had read the information of all the other guilds except Fairy Tale. The name flashed in his mind. Alexei. Fairy Tale's Noah Dole. Alexei stared at Noah and whispered in a low voice. I will definitely obtain the Lumen Starlight. Other than Alexei, the other 3 gazes were from 3 different guilds. One was Yukino from Sabertooth. One was Kagura from Mermaid Heel. The 2 girls had been showing excessive attention to Noah since yesterday. Therefore, Noah wasn't surprised at all by his performance. Instead, it was the last gaze that made Noah a little surprised. That line of sight came from Lamia Scale. The owner of the gaze was Tura. 7 years ago, I could only look at your back and offer you my respect. Tura had a smile full of fighting spirit on her face. For 7 years, I have been training. Sir Noah, I look forward to fighting with you. Hearing this, Noah raised his eyebrows and suddenly smiled. When the time comes, I won't be merciful. Tura did not say anything and only showed a satisfied expression. The other guilds also more or less showed a certain degree of attention to Noah, but it was not as intense as the 4 above. Under such circumstances, Chapati's voice began to sound. Then I will now explain the rules of the Great Demonic Martial Arts Exhibition. Following Chapati's voice, the ground in the center of the venue suddenly shook. In the next second, the gravel began to be pushed away, and a huge stone tablet rose from the ground. With a boom, it stood in the middle of the venue. Everyone raised their heads and looked in the direction of the stone tablet. They saw that on the stone tablet, there were 5 different elements. Each line represented the content of the Great Demonic Martial Arts Exhibition for an entire day. In other words, the Great Demonic Martial Arts Exhibition would be held for a total of 5 days. The first 4 days of the Great Demonic Martial Arts Exhibition are made up of 2 parts. Chapati began to explain. The first part is the competition. The participants of each team can choose a contestant before the start of the competition, and then the content of the competition will be announced. There will be a ranking competition, and according to the ranking, the corresponding points will be awarded. The higher the ranking, the more points will be awarded. The first place will be awarded 10 points, the second place will be awarded 8 points, the third place will be awarded 6 points, The 4th place will be awarded 4 points. The 5th, 6th, and 7th place will be awarded 3 points, 2 points, and 1 point respectively. And the last place will not be awarded any points, that is, 0 points. The second part is the duel. The contestants are not freely chosen. Instead, the organizers will choose 8 members from each of the 8 teams based on popularity and other factors. They will compete in 4 one-on-one battles. In the end, the winning team will get 10 points. In the case of a draw, both teams will get 5 points. In the case of a loss, the losing team will get 0 points. In the end, at the end of the 5th day, the team with the highest score will be the winning team of the Great Demonic Martial Arts Exhibition. Now, please choose your contestants for the first day of the competition. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.